My mom saw me fooling around and not studying all day, so she actually directly transferred a mission fee of 50,000 RMB to me, ordering me to bring a girlfriend back to meet her within 3 years. But what she didn't expect was that the very next day, I brought the school's kissing school beauty home with me. Moreover, in her arms, she was holding a little cherub, a little milk bun, who looked incredibly similar to me, 8 or 9 parts alike. Quote, "Grandma, I miss you so much." Seeing this, my mother was utterly dumbfounded. I said, with an awkward expression, "You might not believe this, but this is our biological daughter who has traveled back in time from the future. 3 months ago, I had just walked out the door for less than 2 seconds when a little girl, a porcelain doll-like lolly, ran up to me. "Daddy, I finally found you." I was a bit stunned by the words, so I quickly crouched down and looked at her. "Little girl, did you get lost from your mom and dad? Does Big Brother need to take you home?" To my surprise, the little girl looked confused. "Daddy, what are you talking about? Tong Tong doesn't understand." Hearing this, I felt my scalp tingle. I was an 18-year-old guy. How could an 8 or 9-year-old lolly run up and call me daddy? Thinking this, I had to continue. "Do you miss your dad? Should Big Brother take you to find your dad, okay?" "You are my dad! You're Tong Tong's dad!" The little girl pouted sadly, opening her arms and trying to hug me, but I instinctively dodged, leaving her embracing empty air. The little girl's eyes immediately reddened. "Daddy used to love holding me and lifting me high up. What's wrong today? Does Daddy not want Tong Tong anymore?" Thinking this, she got more and more upset, and tears streamed down. Seeing this, I instantly panicked. Don't cry, little one. Did you hear what I said?" The little girl cried even harder. "Daddy always called me Baby Tong Tong before. HMPH. I'm going to find Mommy and make you kneel on a washboard." I was mortified. "Tong Tong, is it? I really am not your dad. I have a photo." A little girl, still crying, took a photo from the backpack behind her. I took the photo with a sense of helplessness, but when I saw the people in it, I instantly froze again, because it was an old family photo of 3 people. In the picture, Tong Tong was being held by a man who looked 90% like me, and next to him stood an overly beautiful woman. She looked a little familiar, but I couldn't remember where I had seen her. 2 seconds later, Tong Tong, who was beside me, pouted. "HMPH, with this picture I took when I was 5, Daddy can't pretend not to recognize Tong Tong anymore, right?" I came back to my senses, my eyes constantly scanning Tong Tong. I had to admit, this little girl did look very much like me. I then took a deep breath and asked her the names of her last 2 generations of ancestors. My name, of course, was my name, but when I heard Shu Miaotong say her mother's name was Wen Ning, I was stunned again. No wonder I felt she looked familiar the first time I saw the woman. It turned out to be the white moonlight of all the boys in our school. But the problem was that I didn't know her at all. Wen Ning was a student in the key class, and I was in the regular class. High school was almost over, and I hadn't even exchanged a word with this school beauty Wen. Just then, Shu Miaotong suddenly reached out a little hand and grabbed my sleeve. "Daddy, take me to find Mommy. I haven't seen Mommy in days, and I miss her so much." I didn't answer her, but frowned and looked at her. Although I was subtly beginning to accept this fact, why did Shu Miaotong appear here? Could it be time travel? Shu Miaotong furrowed her little brows when she heard my question. "I don't know. I woke up here after a nap." "Okay." If it really was time travel, I couldn't expect a little girl to explain it clearly, and the simplest way was to get a paternity test. Just then, Su Miaotong's stomach suddenly rumbled. She subconsciously touched her flat little tummy. "Daddy, I'm so hungry." Hearing this, I had to take her back to my rented room. Perhaps it was her first time in a new environment. Tong Tong was bouncing around and looking everywhere. But then she looked confused. "Daddy, why don't you live with Mommy? You used to sleep together every night. Did you two have a fight?" I fell silent, walking alone into the kitchen, planning to make the child a simple bowl of egg noodles. A minute later, Tong Tong sat at the table, hugging a bowl bigger than her face. Perhaps she was truly hungry. Her cheeks were stuffed, making her look like a pufferfish. Taking advantage of this time, I checked the cost of a paternity testing agency online. It was indeed a bit beyond my affordability. After eating, Tong Tong insisted on finding her mother. I immediately felt a headache coming on. Wen Ning was the recognized aloof school beauty, I didn't have her contact information, and even if I did, how would I even bring it up? She is your daughter and my future wife? I'd be thought of as a lunatic. Just then, Tong Tong tilted her head. Daddy, did you and Mommy really have a fight? I was a bit nervous. Did Mom and Dad fight often before? Shu Miatong shook her head. No, Mom and Dad's relationship is great. And even if you did fight, Daddy would quickly go and kneel on a washboard, and then Mommy wouldn't be angry anymore. Hearing this, I felt a mix of joy and sorrow. Although it sounded like my marriage would be very happy, it also seemed like I was a little afraid of my wife. But if Shu Miaotong really did travel through time, things were complicated. Finding her mother was indeed the most urgent task. Thinking this, I rubbed the little girl's head, borrowed her family photo, and prepared to go find the rumored aloof school beauty Wen Ning. Then, as I walked, I called my mom. Mom, lend me some money. My mom, Lin Hui's voice was rather impatient. Didn't I just give you 2,000 a few days ago? Are you a money-eating beast? Shu Miaotong's big eyes blinked. Daddy, is that Grandma? I miss Grandma, too. Lin Hui instantly became alert. What's that noise? I hear a child's voice. I paused. Quote, there's something I don't know how to tell you. It looks like you're gonna be a grandma. There was silence on the other end for a long while, followed by the sound of breaking glass. You little scoundrel. Say that again. Whose belly did you get big? How many months is the baby? I rubbed my nose. The child is 8 years old. Hearing this, the phone line went silent again. After a long time, Lin Hui's cold voice came through. Do you think I'm an idiot? Don't know. Send me money, and then you won't look like one. Get out of here! Lin Hui hung up the phone cleanly and decisively. Then, I received a 1,000 RMB transfer from my mom. Since I had classes in the afternoon, I could only leave Tong Tong at home alone. At 1:30 p.m., I went to Wen Ning's classroom. Is Wen Ning here? The boy looked around and shook his head. No. I was silent for a moment. Then where does she sit? I have something to give her. Hearing this, the boy looked at me strangely, but after hesitating for 2 seconds, he told me. I thanked him and walked straight to Wen Ning's seat. Her desk was very tidy. She clearly was a diligent student. I tucked the photo under her pen holder, then tore a piece of scratch paper, wrote down my name and class, and quickly left after doing all this, completely ignoring the puzzled looks of the other students in the class. After all, if I wasn't embarrassed, I was invincible. Soon it was time for school to end. My best friend, Chen Hao, came over with a basketball. Achei, want to play some basketball? I organized my notes without looking up. No, don't distract your dad from getting into a key university. Chen Hao rolled his eyes. His and my grades were similar, fluctuating around the undergraduate admission line for 2.5 years. Was I really going to miraculously get in during the last 4 months? Just as he was about to say more, he suddenly heard someone looking for me. Suche, are you here? He's there, the one sitting in the back of the classroom. Hearing this, I looked up and saw a familiar face standing at the classroom door. Chen Hao's eyes instantly focused on me. Bro, how many dishes did you have today? You must be drunk. I had to admit that the moment I saw the real Wen Ning, I confirmed one thing. If the photo was real, she was the woman in the picture. Shuche, come out for a moment. I have something to say to you. Wen Ning's voice was clear, subtly containing anger. A few minutes later, I met her in an empty corner. She forcefully calmed herself down and then spoke. Shuche, I think we don't know each other, right? Where did this photo come from? Please explain it to me. She knew she was beautiful, and people often slipped her love letters. But this was the first time someone had given her a family photo. In just a moment, her gaze was captivated by the woman in the photo. The woman's face and figure were more mature, and she wore a gentle smile that Wen Ning herself never had. But Wen Ning couldn't help but feel a sudden thought. This is me. Then, she couldn't help but start examining the little girl and the man in the photo. She didn't know the man, but she felt he was a very comfortable-looking adult. So why did she feel a sense of closeness to this beautiful, doll-like little girl? Was it a digitally altered photo? Although Wen Ning secretly thought it was a very malicious prank, she was absent-minded the whole afternoon. I cleared my throat lightly, then pointed to the photo in her hand. Although you might not believe this little girl calls me Dad and says her mom is Wen Ning. Hearing this, the aloof school beauty subconsciously opened her mouth. Are you under too much pressure from your senior year studies? How long has this been going on? Miss Wen, you're quite polite, but my mental state is completely fine. Wen Ning was dumbfounded, but she somehow felt that I wasn't lying. Perhaps it was my overly clear eyes, or perhaps the 3 people in the photo made her too concerned. She looked at the photo again carefully. The boy on it looked almost exactly like me, only the current me looked more like a teenager. Seeing this, I had to patiently explain. I didn't believe it at first either, but Tong Tong gave me this photo. When you meet the child, you might have a different perspective. I don't believe it. A photo doesn't prove anything. Hearing Wen Ning's cold voice again, I also felt a headache. Then can you wait for me at school for a while? Whether you believe it or not, just meet her once. Wen Ning didn't reply, probably still in disarray. Seeing this, I didn't say more, just grabbed my backpack and left school. 20 minutes later, I returned, holding Tong Tong's hand. Wen Ning was still standing where she was. The moment she saw the little girl, she suddenly became flustered, even subconsciously stepping back 2 paces, trying to avoid her. But her eyes couldn't bear to leave the little girl. "Mommy!" Shu Miaotong's eyes instantly sparkled. She opened her arms and ran toward Wen Ning. Quote, "I'm not your mother." Wen Ning wanted to dodge, but the little girl hugged her long, straight legs. Her chubby little face looked at Wen Ning happily. "Mommy, why are you so beautiful today?" Wen Ning was completely frozen. She looked at me for help, but found that I was standing far away. Seeing this, she had to squat down and look at Tong Tong. "Little one, I'm not your mother. You are my mother." Shu Miaotong didn't understand why suddenly neither her dad nor her mom would recognize her. So in her distress, she immediately burst into tears again, the tears flowing down. When Ning felt her heart constrict, she awkwardly tried to wipe the little girl's face. Don't cry, don't cry." Now she finally understood what I meant when I said, "You will feel differently after meeting her once." Half an hour later, when Ning and I were sitting in a cake shop, Tong Tong was eating sweet cake, sitting next to me, her little legs swinging. This scene melted both Wen Ning's and my heart. Finally getting a hold of myself, I paused and spoke. Can I just call you Wen Ning?" Wen Ning tried her best to calm down and softly replied, "You can." I took a sip of lemon water and cleared my throat. "I think we need to resolve this matter as soon as possible. My idea is to get a paternity test with Tong Tong." Wen Ning naturally had no objection. If the result turns out to be true, what should we do?" "I don't know," I answered honestly. 2 high school students don't have the ability to raise a child, not to mention we are now in the critical period of preparing for the college entrance exam. Just then, the little girl suddenly and innocently asked, "Mommy, don't be mad at Daddy anymore. Can we go home together, okay?" "What?" Wen Ning looked at me with confusion. I scratched my head helplessly. "She thought you weren't coming home because you fought with me." Unable to explain, I simply acquiesced. "Fine." Wen Ning accepted this explanation. She thought for a moment, gripping the lemon water with slightly tense fingers. "By the way, the cost of the test." I placed my phone on the table. "It's about 2,000 RMB in total. I think we need to split this cost." Wen Ning hesitated. "I'm sorry, I might have a little difficulty with that. My usual living allowance isn't much. Seeing this, I planned to pay for it first and have her repay me when she was able. After all, my mom had just transferred me 1,000 RMB, which was just enough. Thank you. I'll pay you back as soon as possible." But hearing her words, Tong Tong tilted her head. "Mommy is talking so strangely. Mommy manages all the money at home. Why does she suddenly have to give Daddy money?" It was only then that Wen Ning and I realized a problem we had overlooked. We too were very likely future husband and wife. Wen Ning blushed and turned her head away, not knowing how to respond to the little girl. "I have no history with Shu Che in high school. Why would we get married in the future?" I was also a bit curious. "Tong Tong, do you know why Mom and Dad got together? Was it through a blind date or something?" Shu Miaotong frowned her little eyebrows. "Tong Tong doesn't understand. It's just that Mom and Dad sometimes argue about who fell in love with whom first. Then it wasn't a blind date, but a romance that led all the way to marriage. Was that arguing? That was showing affection in front of the child." Thinking of that scene, Wen Ning felt her scalp prickle. She really couldn't imagine a day when she would be as gently and happily smiling as the woman in the photo. Thinking this, she looked at the time uncomfortably. "I have to go back now. I can't be home too late. Shu Che, please tell me the result as soon as it comes out." Saying this, Wen Ning took out her phone. "Let's exchange WeChat accounts. You can contact me directly if anything happens." After adding WeChat, Wen Ning was ready to leave. Her eyes landed on Shu Miaotong's face again. Shu Miaotong instantly felt the cake in her hand lose its flavor. "Mommy, aren't you coming home with us? Does Mommy not like Tong Tong?" I rubbed her head. "How could that be? Mommy has very important things to do. Tong Tong needs to be sensible." Hearing this, Wen Ning's footsteps paused. Then she carried her backpack and fled in a panic without saying a word. The expedited test results came out quickly. Around 9 p.m., I received 2 reports on WeChat. The professional testing agency showed that the probability of Shu Miaotong having a parent-child relationship with us was 99.99%. In other words, Shu Miaotong was indeed our daughter. So after seeing my message, Wen Ning finally resigned herself. Accepting the fact that her daughter had traveled back from the future, I messaged her again. "What do we do now?" "You are Tong Tong's dad. Why are you asking me? Are you going to be an irresponsible scumbag? Don't talk nonsense." After typing these 3 words, Wen Ning looked at the blank test paper with a headache. She hadn't written a single word all night. All that filled her mind was the overly cute little girl and me, looking clean and handsome. What are they doing now? Thinking this, Wen Ning forcefully patted her cheeks, then got up and left her room. He stood at the door of the room, hesitating for a long time before speaking. "Dad?" "Xiaoning, what's wrong?" Wen Qiming turned down the TV volume a bit. Wen Ning bit her lip. "Dad, can you give me a little more living allowance?" 1,000 RMB. However, as soon as she finished speaking, her stepmother's voice came from the kitchen. "What do you need so much money for? You eat at home every day and don't live out. Where do you intend to spend 1,000 RMB? Qiming, don't give it to her. This is the most important time in high school for her. She needs to focus on her studies." Wen Ning didn't know how to explain. She didn't say a word, just stood there stubbornly with her head lowered. Quote, "Xiaoning, don't listen to your mom's nonsense. Wait in your room." Wen Qiming lowered his voice. "Dad will get it for you in a moment." Wen Ning didn't want to stay in the living room and returned to her room with lowered eyes. She stared blankly at the test paper in front of her, unable to write a single word. 10 minutes later, Wen Qiming knocked on the door, then came in with a stack of money. Wen Ning quickly stood up. "Dad, I'm sorry." "It's nothing. If the money is not enough, be sure to tell Dad." Wen Qiming smiled. "Xiaoning is a big girl now. If you see a pretty dress or something, feel free to buy it." Wen Ning didn't know what to say and just nodded silently, then reached out to take the money. Wen Qiming smiled, just about to ask more, when her half-sister yelled from next door, "Dad, Mom, where did you put the doll I bought with my friend yesterday?" Hearing this, Wen Qiming hurried out. "I think it's in the cabinet. You can look for it yourself." Then, the sound of her stepsister's coaxing and her father's slightly helpless but infinitely doting voice came from next door. Wen Ning lowered her eyes. When she was little, her father used to speak to her in the same tone. But ever since her mother passed away and her father found a new woman, everything changed. Wen Ning shook her head, quickly placed the 1,000 RMB carefully into her school bag, then picked up her phone and sent me a message. "What are you doing now?" There was no reply for a long time, until around 10 p.m. when I finally sent a message back. "Tong Tong and I are shopping at the mall, buying her some clothes." Attached was a photo. Wen Ning clicked on it and saw Shu Miaotong wearing a white bunny-themed pajama set. The little girl was smiling happily, like a mischievous little sprite. Wen Ning hugged her phone, feeling that the faint cloud of gloom in her heart had instantly been lifted a lot. Just then, her phone beeped again. She clicked to listen, and Shu Miaotong's sweet voice came out of the phone. "Mommy, I'm a bunny now. I'm so cute, right?" Wen Ning listened to it over and over again. "So Tong Tong really is my future daughter." Wen Ning pursed her thin red lips, lowered her head, and typed a reply. "N. She's super cute." After finishing shopping, I took the little girl home. Looking at the big bags in my hand and checking the balance in my bank account, honestly, Tong Tong is indeed very well behaved and adorable. But she does have one flaw. Her living environment from childhood must have been incredibly affluent. She's a true little princess. When she sees something pretty that she likes, she'll pull my hand and beg me to buy it. Thinking this, I hung my jacket on the rack and casually asked, "Tong Tong, how big is the place where you usually live?" Is it bigger than here? Tong Tong looked around the environment. It's about the size of the bathroom back home. Hearing this, my eyes lit up. Good. I was now certain that my future career was very successful, and I was a complete daughterholic, the type who'd pick the stars and moon for his daughter. But right now, I'm just a poor high school student. And Wen Ning doesn't look like a super rich second-generation lady either. This is trouble. How much money does it take to raise a child? I got a headache thinking about the balance in my card. System, where are you? My daughter traveled through time. Don't I get a system to help father become a dragon? I lowered my head and met Shu Miaotong's bright, big eyes. The little girl squeezed her bunny ears, then tilted her head and gave me an adorable, simple-minded smile. I sighed, quote, "All right, it seems I have nothing." Then, I took Tong Tong to wash up and prepare for bed. She happily hugged me tightly. "I want to sleep with Daddy tonight." When I was little, I slept with Mommy and Daddy. Mommy was on the left, Daddy was on the right. I could snuggle into whoever's arms I wanted. But after she started primary school, she got her own room, and Mommy wouldn't let her sleep with them anymore. I originally wanted to refuse her, but seeing the expectation in her bright eyes, I couldn't bring myself to say no. "Don't steal Daddy's blanket, okay?" Shu Miaotong jumped onto the bed happily, burying her head in the quilt with her bottom sticking up. "It smells like Daddy." Just then, my phone suddenly rang. It was an unfamiliar number. After answering, Wen Ning's low voice came from the other end. "Shu-che, are you two home?" "Yes, we are. But I didn't know how to buy clothes for the little girl, so I only picked out one set of pajamas. Find a chance to take her to the mall yourself, okay?" "Okay, let's find a time this weekend." Wen Ning's voice sounded a bit awkward. It's not very convenient for me." I waved my hand. "It's fine. I live alone. It's okay for Tong Tong to stay with me." But Tong Tong seemed very happy to see you. Wen Ning obviously noticed this. After all, during their short time together today, her mind had been completely filled by Tong Tong, this soft, adorable little bundle. Wen Ning took a deep breath. "Shu-che, let's find a time to meet tomorrow, somewhere private." Her voice was very low, like she was a thief. I chuckled. I know our high and mighty school beauty Wen would never have any scandalous rumors. When Ning fell silent, the remark seemed to have made her a little depressed and unhappy. She couldn't help but let out a little HMPH. Hearing this, I quickly said, "Just kidding. Just contact me when you're free." "Oh, do you want to talk to Tong Tong?" Shu Miaotong's eyes clearly lit up. "Is it Mommy? Tong Tong wants to say goodnight to Mommy." The noise on the other end of the phone clearly increased, followed by a small IE sound, like something had crashed into a water cup on the desk. Never mind. With that, Wen Ning quickly hung up the phone as if escaping a disaster. Her chest was heaving violently, and a fierce pink blush spread from her neck, rapidly occupying her translucent earlobes and porcelain white cheeks. I'm only a senior in high school this year. A future husband and an adorable daughter? This is too weird. When I woke up the next morning, I saw Shu Miaotong hanging onto me, sleeping soundly with a bit of drool at the corner of her mouth. I closed my eyes, enjoying the quiet atmosphere for a moment before gently and carefully detaching her. By the time I finished washing up and buying breakfast, Shu Miaotong was already awake. She seemed not fully awake from her dream, kneeling groggily on the bed. When she saw me, she pouted, looking angry. "Daddy, kiss Tong Tong." I put the breakfast on the table. Tong Tong is a big girl now. She can't be so clingy to Daddy. Hearing this, So Miaotong immediately humped and said, "Hateful Daddy." I was a bit confused, wondering what I had done to make her angry. Does this girl have morning crankiness? Thinking this, I watched her with interest. Tong Tong doesn't like Daddy anymore? Morning crankiness isn't a good thing. People from the Shu family don't have this habit. So who did she inherit it from? Shu Miaotong pouted and glared at me in dissatisfaction. It wasn't until after breakfast that she was fully awake and transformed from the huffy little pufferfish back into the soft, adorable little bundle from before. She hugged me with a bit of a pout. "Daddy, Tong Tong is so bored alone at home. I used to have so many friends in primary school." I patted her head. "Tong Tong, bear with it for 2 days, okay? You'll be able to make new friends soon. Daddy will be back at noon. If you're hungry, there are strawberries in the fridge and snacks on the coffee table." Du Miaotong was still very sensible. She smacked a kiss on my cheek. Tong Tong will be good at home. Daddy, you have to bring Mommy home quickly too. Little Lolly's pink lips were soft and warm, making me feel strangely reassured. On the way to school, I was thinking about how to get Tong Tong into school. After all, she couldn't stay home all the time. When I arrived at school, Chen Hao immediately came over with a stern face to interrogate me. Ah Che, explain. What's your relationship with School Beauty Wen? I glanced at him. No relationship, it's just that we have a daughter. Seeing his disbelief, I waved my hand. Just kidding, I'm the Student Life Committee member, and Wen Ning is the math representative for the key class. We just have some teacher-related business. Besides, she's the school beauty. Would she even look at me? Don't overthink it. Chen Hao was satisfied with this explanation. After all, good brothers can endure hardship together, but they can't have one rise to success alone. To my surprise, my childhood friend, Li Yu, who was next door, countered, "Why can't she look at you? Ah, Che, you actually look pretty good. If you dress up, you have the potential to be a pretty boy. I guess that 50-year-old aunties love your type." The blogger fully agrees. He does look good, only a tiny bit less handsome than Yan Zhu, a popular actor. Chen Hao looked dejected. When did you go blind? You don't like Ah Che, do you? Li Yu frowned. Buzz off. I mean, Hao Zi, you're the ugliest. As the two of them continued to bicker, it was quickly time for the first math class. Looking at the test paper in front of her with a score of 72, which was 8 points less than the passing grade, Li Yu was a bit frustrated. After all, if she didn't do well on the college entrance exam, she would have to go back and inherit the family business, jumping from the starting line of life to the finish line in one step. Yes, she was a small fupo, wealthy woman, whose family owned over 10 chain restaurants. But this girl was a study fanatic, the kind who practices the 9-yin manual. She studied 12 hours a day, just wanting to taste the bitterness of life. At noon, Wen Ning and I arranged to meet outside the small convenience store behind the school. After waiting for about 5 minutes, Wen Ning slowly walked over. I handed her a bottle of mineral water. Quote, "Do you have morning crankiness?" Hearing this, Wen Ning looked confused. After a while, she hesitantly asked, How? How did you know?" Her morning crankiness was very severe. It was the kind where she'd wake up in the morning and everything would annoy her. Even a passing dog would get kicked twice. Therefore, Wen Ning always woke up very early and left the house to avoid upsetting her stepmother and stepsister. But this was her biggest secret. Even her father didn't know. I sighed. Then Tong Tong inherited it from you. When she was angry with me this morning, I didn't even dare to speak. Seeing Wen Ning's silence, I used the most polite tone possible. That habit is actually not very good. Wen Ning was a bit unhappy. It's natural. I can't change it. HMPH. If you don't like it, you shouldn't have married me. Then you deserve the morning crankiness. Then I suggested that she come home and meet Tong Tong. Wen Ning hesitated. The second meeting is already at his home? Although she felt a bit awkward, she wasn't too resistant. After all, if she hadn't truly fallen in love with me in the future, there's no way she would have married me. So she nodded in agreement. Come back early. I still have test papers to finish. A few minutes later, the two of us sat side by side in the last row of the bus. Wen Ning took a deep breath and took a notebook out of her backpack. When I went back, I thought a lot about Tong Tong. Saying this, she pointed to the first item with the tip of her pen. First and foremost, you need to keep track of all the money you spend on Tong Tong. I need to bear half of that cost. My usual living allowance isn't much, but I will definitely pay you back. Seeing her serious expression, I paused. After hesitating for 2 seconds, I said, Actually, you don't have to give me the money. I'm Tong Tong's dad. It's normal to earn money to support my wife and child. Wen Ning's cheeks instantly flushed. She glared at me fiercely. Don't talk nonsense. Who's your wife? I let out a dry laugh. You continue. I currently live with my family. It's impossible to tell them about this, so Tong Tong will probably have to live with you. Maybe when I go to university, I'll move out. Wen Ning felt a bit awkward, as if she couldn't help with anything about Tong Tong, and had to rely on me for everything. I waved my hand. It's not a big deal. However, Tong Tong really wants to see you. Try to spend time with her every day. Wen Ning pursed her lips and only slowly nodded after a long time. Then she brought up the most important issue. And then there's Tong Tong's identity. To integrate into society and grow up like a normal little girl, she needs an identity. I closed my eyes, rubbing my head and thinking about this problem. Wen-ning didn't bother me either, looking down at the notebook in her hands. She hadn't read any sci-fi novels, and her concept of time was still at the most basic level of understanding. If life went normally, she would marry me one day in the future and give birth to Tong Tong. But now Tong Tong had come back from the future, and she and I met ahead of time. Has our life trajectory already been changed? Will we still get married and have Tong Tong in the future? Wouldn't there be two Tong Tongs then? Wen-ning couldn't figure it out, her thoughts a tangled mess. After a while, I opened my eyes. I'll figure out Tong Tong's identity. Wen-ning snapped back to attention, her expression still a bit stunned. Will it be very troublesome? I shook my head. A little, but I'll handle it. You don't need to worry too much. Compared to me, Wen-ning felt like she wasn't a good enough mother to Tong Tong, so she took out the 1,000 RMB a bit dejectedly. Here's the money for the test. I didn't decline and accepted it directly. Soon, the bus arrived at the stop. When I opened the door, the sprite-like little girl ran out of the room. When she saw Wen-ning, Tong Tong's eyes instantly brightened. She opened her arms and pounced into her embrace. Mommy, welcome home! Wen-ning's expression was a little unnatural, but she still couldn't help but crouch down and hug her. Seeing this, Xu Miaotong stood on her tiptoes, kissed Wen-ning's right cheek, and then ran over to me and did the same thing. Watching this scene, a very strange thought suddenly popped up in Wen-ning's mind. Why does this feel a bit like an old married couple? Entering the living room, Wen-ning found that my home was much tidier than she had imagined. It didn't have the sloppiness of a single man living alone, but was very neatly organized. This made her feel much more comfortable. What did Tong Tong do at home this morning? Wen-ning avoided her daughter's bright gaze and asked in a gentle voice. Watched TV. Xu Miaotong hugged her mom and wouldn't let go, and then waited for Daddy and Mommy to come home. I went to the kitchen to wash my hands and glanced at the TV. It was playing the classic Pleasant Goat and Big Big Wolf. I smiled. Tong Tong, do you know what the ending of Pleasant Goat is? Xu Miaotong immediately asked, What? What? Big Big Wolf ate them all up. Hearing this, Xu Miaotong was stunned for a long time. After a moment, her lips quickly turned down, and she started wailing loudly. Seeing this, Wen-ning felt terrible and quickly hugged Tong Tong, glaring at me. Don't talk nonsense! Daddy is lying to you. In the end, Pleasant Goat chased Big Big Wolf away. Only then did Xu Miaotong cheer up again, making a face at me forcefully. Stinky Daddy, go away! I couldn't help but smile. See? You two are getting along quite well. When I came out of the kitchen again, the mother and daughter were already sitting on the sofa. Xu Miaotong hadn't been close to her mom for many days, so she was clinging to Wen-ning and refused to leave. Mommy, Tong Tong slept with Daddy last night. Mommy never lets me sleep with Daddy before. Is that so? Wen-ning was also curious about her future self. From the sound of it, she might be a relatively strict mother. Tong Tong pouted. Yes, Mommy is so stingy. Mommy always competes with Tong Tong for Daddy. Hearing this, I casually interjected, Then doesn't Tong Tong get mad at Mommy? Yes, I do! And then Mommy asks Daddy, if Tong Tong and I fall into the water, who will you save first? I suddenly had a bad feeling. And then Daddy gets punished by Mommy to kneel on a washboard. Saying this, Xu Miaotong held out her hands and made a gesture for the size, one that big, for washing clothes. Hearing this, I quickly turned my head, looking at the school beauty sitting on the sofa with some apprehension. Wen-ning, however, looked disbelieving. Although there was a saying that a daughter is her father's little lover, she didn't believe that her future self would be jealous of her daughter. Sensing that I was looking at her, Wen-ning said with a stiff face, Why are you looking at me? Now you know what kind of person I am, right? I cautiously nodded. I know, but my look of high alert made Wen-ning a bit angry. What do you mean? Do you think I'm the kind of woman who makes her husband kneel on the floor if he disagrees with me? I stopped talking to the mother and daughter and went back to the kitchen to prepare lunch. After watching TV with Tong Tong for a while, Wen-ning also walked into the kitchen ready to help. I looked back at her handling the shrimp I bought this morning. You don't need to bother. Spend more time with Tong Tong. But Wenning frowned. Shuche, have you ever prepared fresh seafood before? My movements paused. I know putting shrimp in a pot turns them into cooked shrimp. And, quote, the shrimp were alive before they died. Hearing this, Wenning sighed, then tied on an apron and ushered me to the side. Seeing this, I felt a little bit looked down upon by her. Tong Tong was right. Regardless of whether I and Wenning in this life will eventually get together, the dynamics of our family status were already showing signs. Wenning knew what I was talking about. She kept a stern face and said coldly, "Then be careful in this life. Don't fall into my hands again, or I'll make you kneel until you drop." Wenning's movements were quick. Soon, she had cooked a table full of delicious food. Looking at it, Shu Miaotong's mouth couldn't help but water with moving tears. Seeing this, Wenning inexplicably felt a sense of accomplishment. I took a bite and gave a very insincere evaluation. Just so-so. What I made was about the same. Wenning rolled her eyes, then lowered her head to add food to Tong Tong's plate. Tong Tong, eat slowly. Perhaps even Wenning didn't realize that when she looked at Tong Tong, her face unconsciously showed gentle affection. After a while, she suddenly asked cautiously, "Shuche, how are your grades?" I glanced at her. "Fluctuating around a regular undergraduate score. I won't drop below it, but I won't go up either. I can't compare to you, who is ranked 6th in the whole school." I see. Wenning's eating slowed down, as if she was thinking about something. I knew what she was thinking. After a moment of silence, I sighed. Fine. I originally wanted to get along with you as a regular person, but it looks like I'll have to get into a university in the same city as you. Hearing this, Wenning's eyes instantly widened, and she looked at me with a strange expression. I frowned. Are you secretly looking down on me in your heart? Wenning's expression was very awkward. No, I'll work hard to get into a university in the same city as you. I think that would be easier. I sighed. School beauty, Wen, your aggressiveness is a bit too much. But why would a top student like you marry me, who scores less than 600 points? As soon as I finished speaking, Wenning's little face instantly puffed up. How would I know? How did my future self get tricked by you into going home? After lunch, we spent some more time with Tong Tong, then prepared to go to class. The little girl was naturally very reluctant. Wenning coaxed her for a long time and promised to come back to see her tomorrow. Shu Miaotong clung to her mother's long legs and wouldn't let go. Mommy and Daddy always kiss Tong Tong when they leave. Wenning had no choice but to kiss her cheek. Shu Miaotong's eyes curved in a smile. And Daddy! So I also imitated Wenning's manner and touched her other cheek. Mommy and Daddy have to come home early. Tong Tong will miss you. Seeing this, both of our moods were a bit subtle, as if we were a real couple going out. On the way to school, Wenning was full of worry. Tong Tong is very sensible, but leaving her alone at home is too cruel. I thought about it and spoke up. Fortunately, tomorrow is the weekend. I plan to take Tong Tong to my aunt's place. Faced with her questioning eyes, I explained, my uncle is at the police station. I want to ask him about Tong Tong's situation. I sighed. If Tong Tong were a little older, I could say she was my uncle's illegitimate daughter and my younger sister. Wenning hesitated. I'll go with you. I didn't think too much of it and immediately agreed. When we arrived at the classroom, Li Yu was sitting at her seat doing test papers, while Chen Hao was sleeping on the desk during the noon break. I sat down and looked at my incorrect answers for a while, suddenly feeling a headache. 688 points. I won't reach that, even if I study as hard as Yu. Li Yu, who had been talked about behind her back, sensitively lifted her head. Che, is there really something going on between you and School Beauty Wen? No, I'm not interested in women, but Li Yu felt that the situation was a bit off. Then what are you interested in? Making money. By the way, Yu, let me ask you something. What are some ways high school students can make money? Li Yu was stunned. Are you really short on cash? How much do you need? I'll transfer it to you now. I've saved up over 200,000 RMB from New Year's money and allowance over the years. Is that enough? Hearing this, I was instantly dumbfounded. Seriously, sis, maybe I should just be your servant? However, after a moment of contemplation, I shook my head and refused. I'll come to you when I'm really short. Li Yu understood my personality. She smiled and put away her phone. All right then, let's go out for barbecue tonight. My treat. Hearing her words, I thought for a moment. Then I'll bring someone along. My 8-year-old cousin is staying at my place recently. Li Yu had no objection, so after school, I went home first to pick up Tong Tong. But what I never expected was that when Tong Tong saw Li Yu and Chen Hao, she suddenly said happily, Uncle Chen Hao, Auntie Yu, long time no see. Uncle, why do you suddenly have hair? Hearing this, all of us were stunned. Chen Hao clenched his fists. When did I not have hair? And calling me uncle right away? Little girl, do you have any manners? Thinking this, he looked at me resentfully. Did you teach her that? I looked at Chen Hao's thick hair with a strange expression. Only I knew how significant Tong Tong's words were. Li Yu also curiously examined Shu Miaotong. Then she shook her head and said, She doesn't look much like your cousin. This must be your biological sister. I was relieved and openly admitted, Indeed, but she's not my biological sister. Then I crouched down and hugged Tong Tong. This is my daughter. Of course, Tong Tong looks like Daddy. Shu Miaotong also happily put her arms around my neck. I love Daddy the most. Chen Hao rolled his eyes. All right, let's go eat. What are you teaching this kid every day? I can't believe her real dad doesn't beat you up. Hearing this, I couldn't help but laugh. Believe it or not. Then we arrived at a newly opened mall. Tong Tong, who hadn't been out with her dad for a long time, was overjoyed, skipping and jumping all the way. Suddenly she stopped and pointed at a claw machine. Daddy, I want that. I glanced inside. It was full of fluffy little white rabbit dolls. Daddy will take you to get them after dinner, Tong Tong nodded. Get 2. One for Tong Tong and one for Mommy. Hearing this, I suddenly remembered that a very small rabbit doll was also hanging on Wen Ning's backpack. When we were on the bus this afternoon, she would sometimes unconsciously fiddle with the toy rabbit's ears. Just then, Chen Hao, who was walking ahead, smiled and asked, Little girl, who is your mom? Mommy is Mommy. Uncle Chen Hao's question is so strange. Chen Hao choked. Call me Big Brother. Big Brother will get you a doll later. I don't want to. Shu Miaotong turned her head away unhappily. This made Li Yu reach out and pinch her little face. Little sister, don't mind him. This uncle is not a good person. You should stay far away from him in the future. Chen Hao pouted. Yes. I'm not a good person. I wonder who was bullied in elementary school and came running with a runny nose, pulling my sleeve and calling me Brother Chen Hao. Li Yu was furious. That was years ago. I was young and naive then. Watching the two of them argue, Shu Miaotong cautiously whispered in my ear, Daddy, Uncle, and Auntie are still fighting all the time. I wonder if they'll ask Daddy to mediate later. Hearing this, I looked ahead curiously. Fighting all the time? Could it be that these two are still sticking together, even after graduating from university? Sure enough, when we reached the barbecue restaurant, Shu Miaotong suddenly frowned. Auntie, why didn't Ming Ming come today? Li Yu was confused. Who is Ming Ming? Shu Miaotong was stunned. It's Uncle Chen Hao and Auntie Yu's daughter. She's my best friend. Hearing this, Chen Hao, who was drinking water, almost choked to death on the spot. Li Yu was also startled and immediately glared at me angrily. What do you usually teach this child? I awkwardly spread my hands. I really didn't teach her that. Li Yu imagined the scene, subconsciously shivering. Don't disgust me. I'd vomit every morning if I saw that face of his. Chen Hao squinted at her. Plenty of girls chase me. Who are you to judge? To his surprise, Li Yu nodded. True. Then you should be careful. After all, you're old and ugly. Maybe they just lack a father figure. Chen Hao, who was about to say something with a mocking smile, swallowed all his insults when he saw Tong Tong across from him. Finally, he gave a thumbs up. Awesome. The two of them still hadn't reconciled during dinner, eating with cold faces. Afterward, as promised, I went to the claw machine to get a rabbit doll for Tong Tong. Tong Tong hugged the 2 fluffy rabbit dolls, rubbing her face against them. So cute. Then, we parted ways with them and walked home hand in hand. I stroked my daughter's head. Tong Tong, is what you said true? Uncle Chen Hao and Auntie Li? You have a daughter named Ming Ming? Shu Miaotong happily fiddled with the rabbit ears. Yes, Ming Ming is my best friend. Hearing this, I felt a little worried. Will those futures change because of Tong Tong's appearance? However, on second thought, I was relieved. Since something as outrageous as time travel has already happened, why bother thinking so much? Other people travel with systems and cheat codes, but an embarrassing time traveler like Tong Tong would be kicked out of the group next door. The next morning at 8:30 a.m., Wen Ning arrived at my doorstep. I scratched my messy hair. You're here so early. Tong Tong isn't even up yet. Come in first. Walking into the living room, Wen Ning immediately saw the 2 white rabbit dolls on the sofa. She stared at them for a long time before reluctantly pulling her gaze away. Seeing this, I casually picked up one of them and put it in Wen Ning's hand. This is for you. Tong Tong said you like rabbits and insisted I get one for you. Hearing this, Wen Ning held the rabbit blankly, a little at a loss. I didn't pay much attention to her expression and walked into the room to wake up my daughter. Only then did Wen Ning lower her head and look at the rabbit doll in her hand. Her eyes held a faint softness. So cute. Actually, it had been a long time since anyone had given her a small rabbit doll. The one on her backpack was bought by her mother from a street vendor and personally hung on her backpack when she was in preschool. Every time Wen Ning fiddled with the rabbit's ears, she could still remember her mother's face. After breakfast, Su Miaotong's little face was puffed up, and she was lying in Wen Ning's arms, like an angry pufferfish. Wen Ning felt a little embarrassed. The little girl's world-weary look first thing in the morning was indeed no different from her biological mother. So she lowered her head and stroked her daughter's head. Tong Tong, are you unhappy to see Mommy? Pouting like that isn't pretty at all. To her surprise, Tong Tong's next words made her a little annoyed. I'm unhappy! Mommy woke me up! Seeing this, I looked at her with a forced smile. I told you, this little girl is very cranky in the morning. I don't know who she learned it from. Wen Ning's expression froze. After a long while, she finally spoke with a cool tone. Then you should write that down. Never marry a woman with morning crankiness in the future. I lowered my head and sorted out my backpack. I'll set a house rule later. Anyone who dares to give me morning crankiness will have their butt spanked. Wen Ning let out a cold HMPH. Tong Tong, Daddy said he's going to spank your butt. I immediately denied it. I wouldn't bear to spank Tong Tong. Wen Ning's face stiffened again, and when she realized what I meant, her face instantly flushed crimson. It wasn't until half an hour later that Shu Miaotong fully recovered from her waking state. She giggled non-stop while lying in Wen Ning's arms. Meanwhile, I squatted beside them, packing up the game console and scattered discs into my backpack. You two play a little longer. I'm going out for a bit and we'll be back soon. Wen Ning was stunned. Where are you going? To sell the game console and discs. The college entrance exam is coming soon, and I don't have much time to play anyway. I'll sell them while they're still worth something. Wen Ning didn't know much about electronic products for boys, so she didn't think much of my words until the sound of the door closing came. Then she realized something. Tong Tong, does Daddy like playing games very much? Tong Tong nodded emphatically. He loves it. There are so many game consoles at home. Daddy wipes them with a towel several times a day. Tong Tong loves sitting in Daddy's arms and watching him play games. Hearing this, Wen Ning looked at the empty coffee table and didn't speak. It was for Tong Tong, something he clearly loved, yet he deliberately pretended not to care in front of me. Wen Ning had never truly understood me. Because of her mother's early death, Wen Ning had always been relatively indifferent to relationships. But now, she suddenly felt that no matter what her attitude towards me was now, at least in Tong Tong's world, Wen Ning must have truly loved me. Thinking this, Wen Ning gently pinched her daughter's little face. Tong Tong, don't get angry with Daddy when you wake up in the morning anymore, okay? Hearing this, Tong Tong's little face wrinkled up. She didn't want to be angry with Daddy either, but she just felt so annoyed when she woke up in the morning. Then she held out her little finger. Then, Mommy, let's pinky swear that even if Tong Tong and Mommy are very, very annoyed when we wake up in the morning, we won't get angry with Daddy. Wen Ning was stunned, and her mood suddenly became subtly complicated. After a while, she held out her finger and made a pinky swear with her daughter. Half an hour later, I returned. Looking at the mother and daughter sitting on the sofa watching TV, I asked, "What did you talk about?" Hearing my voice, Su Miaotong jumped off the sofa and pounced into my arms. "It's a secret, Daddy. Tong Tong and Mommy, just Pinky, swore that it won't change for 100 years. I looked at Wen Ning, but she also turned her head away, though her ears were inexplicably burning again. "Yes, it's a secret. We can't tell you." I crouched down and didn't ask further. "Let's go. We'll go buy clothes for Tong Tong first. We'll see my aunt this afternoon." After leaving, I chose the nearest mall, holding my phone and walking ahead. Looking at the balance in my Alipay, the game console and discs were in very good condition and sold for over 3,000 RMB in total. It should be enough for living expenses. Even after buying clothes for Tong Tong, there will still be a lot left. But Tong Tong will definitely have to go to school later, so I was calculating in my mind and seemed a bit silent. Wen Ning, on the other hand, was holding Shu Miaotong's hand and walking behind me, her expression unusually soft. Seeing her daughter happy, her mood was also inexplicably pleasant. However, what she never expected was to run into her stepsister, Wen Chuang, here. Wen Chuang was surrounded by a group of junior high school girls, all dressed very ostentatiously. But when she saw Tong Tong holding Wen Ning's hand and me standing next to them, her face suddenly darkened. "Wen Ning, if you came to the mall, why didn't you just tell Mom you were going out with a classmate? Why did you lie and say you were going to the library?" Wen Ning gave a perfunctory N and lowered her eyes without speaking, only slightly tightening her grip on Tong Tong's hand. But Wen Chuang continued to press. Who is he, and where did this child come from? Shu Miaotong glanced at her and immediately buried her face in her mother's arms, looking a bit unhappy. Wen Ning's face didn't show much emotion. She said gently, "Friends, I'm just asking. Xiaojing, don't worry, I won't tell Mom and Dad." Wen Chang's face clearly showed disbelief, and she continued to pester, very interested. This was mainly because it was the first time in so many years that she had seen Wen Ning out with a boy. Wen Ning remained silent. Gradually, the junior high school girls who came out with Wen Qiang all sensed the awkwardness between the sisters. Wen Jiang was very displeased and softly scoffed. "Do you have to be like this all the time? We're family. There's no need to hide everything from us, is there? Do you always have to give Mom and me attitude?" Wen Ning found her words a little funny. In fairness, she didn't particularly dislike this stepsister. After all, it was normal for a stepmother to love her own daughter, so she would help out with some chores at home and never compete for anything. But Wen Chang and her stepmother just didn't like her. Thinking this, Wen Ning took a deep breath. "It doesn't matter if you tell them. I'm already 18 and an adult. I can have my own life and friends." Wen Chang moved her lips, not knowing what to say. Finally, she just stomped her foot angrily. "Do whatever you want. I'm too lazy to bother with you. With a personality like yours, no wonder Mom and Dad don't like you. No one will like you." Wen Ning didn't say anything, but I, who had been playing with my phone, looked up and glanced at Wen Chang. "Little girl, don't be so rude with your mouth. At such a young age, you're like a gossiping old woman. Aren't you embarrassed?" "What did you say?" Wen Chang instantly flushed. "Sis, who is he?" Saying this, she reached out to push me, but I didn't budge. Instead, she staggered back a step herself. I wasn't angry, I just reached out and patted her shoulder. "Get along well with your sister in the future. Don't bully her all the time, got it?" Saying this, my expression gradually hardened. "When I was bullying people in junior high, you didn't even know where you were yet." Wen Qiang felt a tightness in her chest, under my gaze, and instinctively took a step back. Seeing this, I slowly smiled. "There you go. Be good and listen. Your sister will buy you delicious food in the future. All right, no big deal. Go play with your classmates." Hearing my tone of lecturing a child, Wen Qiang wisely did not argue further. She left with her classmates without a word. Seeing this, Wen Ning finally came back to her senses. To be honest, she was a little startled. She even thought I was about to reach out and slap Wen Qiang's face. Thinking this, she muttered softly, "Why were you suddenly so fierce?" I spread my hands. In junior high, I was fooling around with Chen Hao all the time. I was ruthless back then. But I reformed later. Wen Ning was a bit dazed. After a while, she complained softly, "She really didn't insult me just now." I glanced at her and said casually, "No." She said, "No one will like you." Wen Ning froze. There was obvious confusion on her pretty face. "No one will like me? Why are you angry? Her words were too strange. Wen Ning felt her ears burning again, a delayed reaction. Just then I continued, "Isn't that an insult to Tong Tong?" Hearing this, Wen Ning let out a sound, knowing she had misunderstood. But a sudden sense of frustration welled up in her, and she couldn't help but blurt out, "Then how much of a terrible person must you be to like me in the future?" Hearing this, I was speechless. How is this top student Wen's thought process different from ordinary people? She seems a little silly. Then the two of us took Tong Tong shopping to pick out a few clothes for her. The mother and daughter had similar tastes. Tong Tong also loved the beautiful children's clothes that Wen Ning liked. "Why don't you try these on? I think they would suit you very well." The saleslady pointed to a side display. "Types." Wen Ning followed her gaze. It was 3 adorable kitten-themed parent-child pajamas. Then the saleslady looked at me, who was sitting on a chair playing with my phone. "These are perfect for you. Big brother, be a little more serious, too." I, who was mistaken for a big brother, looked up and instantly felt a bad premonition. How could a tall, grown man like me wear something so childish? So I immediately waved my hand in refusal. "I don't want to." Hearing this, Tong Tong hugged me and started to pout. "Daddy, Tong Tong likes them." I frowned. "But Daddy will be laughed at by Uncle Chen Hao if I wear such childish clothes." "Please, Daddy is the best!" Shu Miao Tong clung to my hand, shaking it reluctantly. The saleslady standing by was so moved her bones were shrinking. "You bastard, buy it for her. Buy it for her quickly." Helplessly, I pinched her nose. "Tong Tong is so young, but already knows how to do this. I wonder how many boys she'll trick into being a baba sheep when she grows up." When Ning looked at Tong Tong clinging to her dad, her mood inexplicably subtle. No wonder Tong Tong said she would compete with her for her dad in the future. She's so good at acting spoiled. She's even more clingy than a little lover. "The 3 of you can try them on first. It's okay if you don't like them. We have a camera in our store, and even if you don't buy them, it's nice to have a photo as a souvenir." Since she said that, Wen Ning and I couldn't refuse any more. Moreover, since Tong Tong traveled back from the future, we hadn't taken a picture with our daughter yet. 10 minutes later, I stood in front of the mirror in the hall in my changed clothes. A little later, Wen Ning led Tong Tong out of the women's changing room. She hadn't tied her hair back, but simply looped the hair tie around her wrist, which made her entire aura suddenly look a lot more relaxed. "Don't look at me." Wen Ning avoided my gaze. She was simply doing it to make it easier to take off the clothes later. "It looks good," I muttered. "So after you married me, you kept this hairstyle at home to make it easier to take off your clothes too?" Of course, I didn't say that out loud. It was the kind of bad joke that would make Wen Ning murder me on the spot. The saleslady immediately and gleefully set up the camera. "Hurry up and take a picture! You don't look like you're just playing house, you really look like a family!" The 3 of us stood in front of the camera and were captured in a perfectly composed photo. Soon, the saleslady sent the photo to both of our WeChat accounts. I glanced at the photo on my phone and didn't say anything, but ultimately bought the set of parent-child outfits. Wen Ning also received it, but she felt a little disappointed. Did I look that happy when taking the photo? After thinking for a moment, she created a new album on her phone. Then she put the photo inside and named the album Tong Tong. After doing all this, she put her phone in her pocket, screen locked. But when she looked up, she saw me walking ahead, one hand holding the bouncing Tong Tong, and the other hand carrying everything we bought for our daughter. This scene made Wen Ning pause. After 2 seconds, she took out her phone again and slowly deleted the name, Tong Tong, changing it to Tong Tong and Shu Che. After lunch, the 3 of us arrived at a neighborhood. Wen Ning instructed me, "When we get there, just say that Tong Tong is my sister and I asked you to help with this matter. In short, don't let your aunt and uncle find out." I nodded. "Don't worry." With that, I walked up and rang the doorbell. Soon, my aunt, Shu Lingling, opened the door. She poked my face. "Yan, what makes you suddenly want to visit? Are you wanting Auntie to take you out to play?" I looked a bit helpless. "Auntie, how old are you? Stop acting like a little girl." Shu Lingling put her hands on her hips, about to retort, when she saw the big and small beauties standing behind me. Before she could even figure out the relationship between Wen Ning and me, she saw the little girl smile at her. "So Daddy brought me to find little Grandma." Looking at the deep dimples on her face, Shu Lingling's expression slowly froze. Why does she look so much like one of us from the old Shu family? Thinking this, her expression immediately darkened. Whose child is this? My eyes lit up. What are you thinking, Auntie? Could my dad give birth to such a beautiful child? Hearing this, Shu Lingling's expression gradually improved. That's true. Then who are they? They're my friend and her sister. Auntie, I'm looking for you for a real matter today. Don't leave us standing outside. Seeing this, Su Lingling quickly stepped aside and led us into the house. Soon, Wen Ning led Tong Tong and sat silently on the sofa, only daring to stare at her toes. Have some water. Shu Lingling had a smile on her face. This girl is truly too beautiful. A Yan really knows how to find them. Thank you, Auntie Shu. Wen Ning was very reserved, like a girl visiting her boyfriend's family for the first time. Seeing this, Shu Lingling immediately dragged me to a room with an excuse, leaving space for Wen Ning to relax. After we left, Tong Tong finally couldn't help but blink her big, bright eyes. Mommy, why won't you let Tong Tong call her little grandma? Little grandma is so good to me. Wen Ning stroked her little head. Because little grandma is not your little grandma yet. She will be in 10 more years. Tong Tong will understand when she grows up. It was Tong Tong's misfortune to be in a familiar, yet strange environment. She knew everyone, but the people who once loved her didn't know her yet. On the other side, So Lingling looked at me with a scrutinizing gaze. Tell me, who are those two girls? The big one and the small one. I waved my hand and looked at her very sincerely. Auntie, you might not believe me, but that little girl is my daughter. Hearing this, Shu Lingling immediately rolled her eyes at me. Go play. I check on you every week. She was born before you even started puberty. I scratched my head awkwardly. Auntie did like to pull down my pants when I was little. Then Shu Lingling put her hands on her hips and continued to ask, so who is the little girl? Hurry up and tell me, quote, Wen Ning's sister. She was kidnapped by human traffickers not long after she was born and was only recently found. She doesn't have a household registration, so she can't go to school, understand? Isn't Brother Meng at the police station? So she asked me to come and ask. Hearing this, Shu Lingling immediately grabbed my ear. What? Brother Meng? Don't be disrespectful. He's your uncle now. I looked annoyed. But I used to call him Brother Meng. I can't change it. Auntie, you're robbing the cradle. My uncle's name was Meng Yufei, and he was 7 years younger than my aunt. Because he was handsome and had a great personality, all the kids in the neighborhood liked this kind older brother. Later, the two somehow fell for each other, leading to a real-life sister-brother romance. After hearing what I said, Shu Lingling's face instantly flushed. What? Robbing the cradle? What does a little kid like you know about love? Saying this, she waved her hand, quickly skipping this topic. Quote, but since it's her family's business, why are you so worried? I spread my hands. It's a dog-licking matter, don't ask. Hearing this, Su Lingling looked at me strangely. Seeing this, I looked helpless. Fine, she's my girlfriend. Shu Lingling's face softened. Why didn't you say so earlier? A Yan is growing up, having such a beautiful girlfriend. Wait, didn't you say you're about to take the college entrance exam? I knew what she was thinking and quickly shushed her. So don't tell my parents, Auntie, and don't say anything random when we go out later. Girls are sensitive about their reputation. If it weren't for her sister, she wouldn't have come here today. Shu Lingling said and then seriously considered it. But no matter how I look at her, she looks like one of us from the old Shu family. Hearing this, I quickly said, right? I also feel we're fated to be together. Speaking of which, Auntie, can this be done? Shu Lingling didn't answer but frowned and continued to ask, what about her family? Why is only the sister bringing the sister over? I sighed. Her mother passed away, her father remarried, her stepmother is a bit... Auntie, you understand. That's quite pitiful, the little girl. But is there any document that can prove the little girl's identity? I shook my head. Although we have a paternity test, we can't just show it to anyone. Seeing this, Shu Lingling said very firmly, if there's nothing, then it definitely can't be done. You don't even need to ask your uncle. Following my aunt's subsequent explanation, I roughly understood that there was indeed no way to handle this at the moment. When the two of us came out of the room, Wen Ning was still sitting properly on the sofa. Seeing the aunt and nephew come out, she looked a little nervous. As for Tong Tong, because she had been waiting for a long time, She had already fallen asleep in her mother's arms. Seeing this, I lowered my voice. Auntie, one more thing. Aren't you the Chinese teacher at Chaoyang Elementary School? Can this little girl go to school first? She can't stay at home all the time at this age. Xu Lingling shook her head. No, she also needs guardian proof. Besides, Auntie is on vacation now. I haven't been to school for almost a week. Saying this, she stroked her flat belly, her face full of happiness. Auntie is pregnant with a little baby. I'm sorry, dear. I might not be able to help you. Sorry for making you come here for nothing. It's okay. Wen Ning's voice was a little lighter. I'll think of other ways. Seeing this, Xu Lingling's curiosity grew even stronger. Why do they really feel like they're raising a child? Why do I feel like I'm talking to my daughter-in-law? Just then, I spoke up. Auntie, I just told you about her family situation. Can we do this? Since you're a teacher, can you help teach her reading and writing during the day and take her out to play? We'll pick her up in the evening. Xu Lingling agreed without thinking twice. Your uncle is usually very busy, and Auntie has nothing to do alone at home anyway. However, while speaking, her eyes never left Wen Ning, who was sitting on the sofa, as if she was talking to her. Sensing her gaze, Wen Ning's earlobes slowly turned red. She felt that ever since I came out, Xu Lingling's eyes on her were a little strange. Thinking this, she lowered her eyes and whispered, Thank you, Auntie Xu. Xu Lingling just smiled. It's nothing. Auntie is very good with children, don't worry. Just then, Meng Yufei came in from outside, carrying several bags. You're here. Stay for dinner tonight, I smiled. Brother Meng, congratulations. Before I know it, you're about to be a father. I'm waiting to hold your baby. Meng Yufei was about to reply when he suddenly noticed the mother and daughter on the sofa. He looked confused. Are you HA's friends? Hello, uncle. Wen Ning replied slowly. Auntie, we'll go back now. I still have test papers to finish. Hearing this, I picked up the sleeping Tong Tong and left. After seeing us off, Xu Lingling roughly explained our purpose to Meng Yufei. Meng Yufei thought it was absurd. No way, I have to go catch that boy and question him. Forget about the little girl. Xu Che is about to take the college entrance exam. What kind of dating is this? Xu Lingling, however, grabbed his arm, a little angry. Come back here. Ayan is an adult. What's the big deal? Besides, you were dating me when you were still studying. With that, Xu Lingling immediately grabbed her husband's ear. Why didn't the police catch you when you came to climb into my bed on the weekends? Officer Meng? Meng Yufei was flustered, his whole face flushed red. That's different. You were the one who came on to me. On the way back, I repeated my aunt's words to Wen Ning. Don't overthink it. It's not that it can't be done, it's just that the time isn't right. Your grades are so good. You can go to the best schools in the country. Don't let this affect you. Wen Ning glanced at me. What about you? I smiled. Will a top student from a prestigious university look down on an ordinary undergraduate? Hearing this, Wen Ning turned her head, not wanting to talk to me anymore. But after a while, she turned back, her voice cool. When we get back, give me your last monthly exam paper. By the time we got home, it was already 4 p.m. The little girl was still asleep, so I just put her on the bed. Wen Ning didn't waste any time, taking my test paper and looking at it carefully. After a long while, her expression slowly relaxed. It's fine. It's just that your English and Chinese are a bit weak. We can improve them if we spend some time. Thinking this, she stood up and put my test paper in her backpack. I'll take the test paper back and look at it closely. I'll pick out some exercises for you and give them to you on Monday. Hearing this, I, who was casually scrolling on my phone, finally looked up. School beauty, Wen. Why are you so concerned about my grades? What if your own grades drop? Wen Ning's action of packing her bag paused. Then let them drop a little. If I score too high, I'm afraid you won't be able to catch up. My expression froze for a moment. After a while, I laughed again. No need. Didn't I catch up to you even when I scored just over 500? Wen Ning let out a light HMPH. I was talking about scores. With that, she left with her canvas bag. 10 minutes later, Wen Ning sat alone in the back of the bus. She looked at the rabbit doll in her hand, feeling a little dazed. Everything that had happened these past few days had made her feel a little unsteady. Tong Tong's description of her future was so wonderful that any girl would be envious. To this day, she still felt a sense of unreality. She didn't know if I, the boy she might only fall in love with at 27 or 28, was the one she was destined to love no matter what age she met him. But Wen Ning was still very happy about it. Wen Ning squeezed the doll's ear. "Mom, after all these years, someone else is sending me a little rabbit besides you." Half an hour later, Wen Ning stood at the door for a while before taking out her key to open the door. However, the moment she stepped inside, she felt the atmosphere was a bit off. Only her stepmother, Xiao Ziqing, was sitting in the living room. Wen Qiang's room door was tightly shut, and the TV volume was very low. Hearing the door open, Xiao Ziqing turned her head and glanced at her. "Xiao Ning, come sit down." Wen Ning slowly walked over, finally sitting down obediently on the sofa. Xiao Ziqing completely muted the TV, then scrutinized the nominal eldest daughter in front of her. "I remember you told me this morning that you were going to the library to study, but your sister came back at noon and said you were actually out with a boy." Wen Ning didn't deny it and nodded. She knew that if she didn't admit it, Xiao Ziqing probably wouldn't bother to pursue it, but for some reason, Wen Ning was unwilling to hide anything about me. Xiao Ziqing hadn't expected her to admit it and was uncharacteristically silent. She paused for a long while before continuing. "I heard from Qiong that the boy is a bit shady. Xiao Ning, how can you make friends with a boy like that?" "No, he's not a shady boy." Wen Ning's tone was unusually serious, unlike her usual timid obedience. Xiao Ziqing frowned, displeased with her attitude. "I haven't told your father about this yet, don't worry him. You are not allowed to see that boy again, do you hear me? My grades are very good and stable, and I'm already an adult. I have the ability to discern who is suitable to be friends with." Xiao Ziqing was genuinely angry this time. "Are you unable to understand what I'm saying? I'm worried that you'll be deceived. Do you understand? You can go wherever you want after the college entrance exam, but not now. Mom, I am not your mother. I am not obligated to indulge your every wish, do you understand?" Xiao Ziqing was in a fit of rage, and blurted it out without thinking. But after speaking, she suddenly realized how inappropriate her words were. She moved her lips, but ultimately didn't say anything more. Then the two of them sat silently on the sofa. Aside from the mute images on the TV, everything seemed to be paused. Finally, Wen Ning stood up with her backpack. "Please don't be angry and take care of yourself. I won't embarrass you or Dad during the college entrance exam." Hearing her address change from you to you, a respectful address in Chinese, Xiao Ziqing wanted to say something, but the words were stuck in her throat. She knew how hurtful her words had been just now. She watched Wen Ning walk into her room and softly closed the door. Actually, Xiao Ziqing wasn't entirely against treating her well and raising her like her own daughter, but every time Xiao Ziqing saw Wen Ning's face, which grew more beautiful as she grew older, she was reminded of her deceased mother. After a long silence, she sighed. "Xiao Ning is a very good child. She's not my daughter. After all these years, I just can't bring myself to love her. What can I do?" In the evening, I spent 4 hours explaining the concept of time travel to Tong Tong. To make it clear, I even showed her many episodes of Doraemon. No copyright involved, Hefe. The next morning, when I asked Tong Tong, she said excitedly, "Tong Tong knows! I'm Doraemon. I came back from the future in a time machine to help Mommy and Daddy make their wishes come true. I won't tell anyone but Mommy and Daddy." I smiled and nodded, then walked with her toward my aunt's house. Upon entering the house, Shu Lingling strangely glanced behind me. "Why are you alone? Where's that girl?" I said calmly, "Her house is far away, so she entrusted the little girl to me last night. Tong Tong, say hello to little grandma." Hearing Tong Tong's greeting, Shu Lingling looked surprised. "Did you teach her that?" I laughed and explained, "I didn't know what to have her call you, so I just let her use the same name as my daughter would." Shu Lingling thought about it and didn't mind. The name sounded quite nice. Besides, she felt a natural closeness to this little girl. "Tong Tong, be a good girl and play with little grandma today. I'll pick you up tonight." Shu Miatong obediently said N, and then walked to Shu Lingling's side, holding her hand. "Auntie, can you also take some time to teach her reading and writing? This child is at the age for elementary school." Shu Lingling smiled and nodded. She looked down and saw the little girl looking up at her. Sensing little grandma's gaze, Shu Miaotong smiled sweetly. "Little grandma, Tong Tong's grades are very good. The teacher gives me little flowers every day." Hearing this, Shu Lingling couldn't help but turn and stare at me. Didn't you say she was kidnapped by human traffickers? She's been to school? I awkwardly spread my hands. Perhaps the human traffickers also know the importance of compulsory education. Shu Lingling gave me a dirty look. You look more like a human trafficker. All right, go to school now. After I left, Shu Lingling smiled and looked at the little girl. Tong Tong, what's your full name? Little grandma, my name is Shu Miao Tong. Hearing this, Shu Lingling's eyes instantly widened. Tong Tong's surname is also Shu? Thinking this, she looked at the little girl carefully again. She increasingly felt that she looked like me when I was a child, while her eyes resembled the girl who came with me yesterday. Thinking of a certain possibility, Shu Lingling suddenly felt it was extremely ridiculous. On the other side, as soon as I returned to school, I received a message from Wen Ning. I probably can't come over to your place this week. Please tell Tong Tong I'm sorry. I thought about it and didn't think it was a big deal. After all, she was a top student in the elite class, so it was normal for her to be busy. I've picked out some exercise books for you and some things I've organized. I'll give them to you. When are you free? A top student is a top student. She wouldn't delay things at all. Thinking this, I typed a reply. After school. Wen Ning instantly replied, No, my dad is picking me up today. I was a bit confused. Does she still need a parent to pick her up in high school? Then my face suddenly cleared. I guessed her stepsister had gone back and talked nonsense. Thinking this, I replied again. Find a girl to come and get it. With that, I put away my phone without waiting for her reply. But when I looked up, I found that Li Yu next door was staring at me intently. Seeing my gaze, she scratched her head awkwardly. I didn't mean to. I wanted to ask you some math problems, but you were so focused that I couldn't help but look twice. I waved my hand. It's fine, as long as Chen Hao, that jealous woman, didn't see it. Although Li Yu knew it was wrong to peek, once she saw the name, Wen Ning, in the message, she couldn't take her eyes off it. Mainly because of the line, I probably can't come over to your place this week. Leola, you felt that if she read any further, there might be something inappropriate for minors. This is my sister, Yu Yu. Why don't you help me go upstairs to find Wen Ning? She has something to give me. Li Yu Yu raised an eyebrow. Is she sleeping? Not yet. As soon as the words left my mouth, I felt something was wrong and quickly changed my words. No, she's just an ordinary friend. But Li Yu Yu clearly didn't believe me. If she's just an ordinary friend, then I'll tell Chen Hao. I panicked. No, Li Yu Yu smirked. Isn't she just an ordinary friend? Seeing this, I quickly used my trump card. Sister Yu Yu, don't worry about dog-licking matters. Li Yu immediately frowned. Dog-licking? But you two have a pretty good relationship, I answered calmly. Isn't dog-licking also divided into levels? Although most of them are not qualified to sit at the table, occasionally some can eat leftovers. Although it sounded ridiculous, Li Yu Yu kindly warned me. Che, dog licker, and a noble man sitting at the same table, you should know your place. I told him the same thing, but he wouldn't listen. Besides, she's a girl. How embarrassing would it be if people knew she was licking me? Hearing this, Li Yu Yu returned to her seat with a dark expression. See? Could he be any more shameless? However, she was still very generous and helped out. But when she saw the practice tests Wen Ning handed over, she couldn't help but complain. There's really no need for this. If you two want to go to the same university, it's useless for Acha to work hard. Wen Ning was silent. She had been secretly observing this girl as well. Finally, she couldn't help but ask, Are you Shuche's friend? Li Yu Yu smiled and nodded. Sort of a childhood friend. We've been playing together since elementary school. But Ache has really changed recently, Li Yu Yu lamented. He never used to study much. He'd just sleep through morning self-study. I don't know what's gotten into him these past 2 days. He just comes in and starts reading and memorizing vocabulary. Hearing this, Wen Ning didn't say anything, only subconsciously curving her lips. He was probably stimulated by my comment that I was afraid he couldn't keep up. Then, Li Yu Yu prepared to leave. Before walking away, she looked at Wen Ning with a mix of envy and longing. Beautiful, good grades and long legs. She makes even a girl like me drool. She suddenly gritted her teeth. Damn dog licker, you deserve to die. In the following days, Wen-ning really didn't come to my house again. She only occasionally organized some practice problems and knowledge points she considered important, which she had Li Yu bring to me. Occasionally, I saw her downstairs after school, looking a little tired, as if her family was keeping a very tight leash on her. However, she would call every night to hear Tong Tong's voice. Little grandma taught Tong Tong how to write daddy and mommy's names today. Wen-ning looked at the photo on WeChat. It was neat and childishly formal calligraphy. It was clear Tong Tong had practiced for a long time. Her voice couldn't help but soften. Tong Tong is amazing! But Shuche, won't your aunt be suspicious? I laughed. It's nothing. Auntie asked a few things, but Tong Tong is very smart and didn't slip up. But after saying this, I scratched my head a little. It's just that the first night I went to pick up Tong Tong, Auntie's gaze was a little subtle and hesitant. Wen-ning saved the photo and put it in her private album. Just then, Tong Tong sniffled. Mommy, when are you coming to see Tong Tong? I miss you so much. I miss Tong Tong too. Can you give Mommy a little more time, okay? Wen-ning's voice softened a little. She didn't know how to comfort her daughter. Her father had talked to her about what happened last Saturday. His tone wasn't strict, but the implication was that he hoped she wouldn't get too close to any boys before university. Chu-che, Just as Wen-ning was about to say something else, her father, Wen Kaiming, knocked on her bedroom door. Ning, go to bed early. Don't talk on the phone late at night. Say whatever you need to say tomorrow morning. Hearing this, I said in a low voice, Hang up. Tong Tong is fine with me. You take care of yourself. With that, I hung up first. Wen-ning then put down her phone and turned back, giving a quiet, Okay, Dad. This tense life continued for a whole week. It wasn't until Friday night that Wen-ning returned home after school, only to find the living room empty. She urgently wanted to hear Tong Tong's voice, but I hadn't replied to any of her messages since yesterday. Not even my phone calls were answered. Can I go see Tong Tong this weekend? But there was still no reply from me. This made Wen-ning uneasy. Just then, Wen Qiming called her. Ning, are you home? Today is your birthday. Your gift is on your desk. Happy birthday. Wen Qiming's voice sounded a little tired. Only then did Wen-ning belatedly realize that today was her birthday. Thank you, Dad. After asking a few questions, Wen-ning learned that they were at the hospital with her stepsister's maternal grandmother, and wouldn't be back until very late. After hanging up, Wen-ning returned to her room. She first put the gift, a pair of white sneakers, into the shoe cabinet. Then she picked up her phone again, but there was still no reply in the chat window. She edited a message again. Can I come over now? After sending this message, Wen-ning had no other thoughts. She sat on the bed, hugging her knees, staring blankly at the phone in front of her. The recent tension in her nerves had made her tired. Unconsciously, she leaned back against the headboard and fell asleep. When she was awakened by the ringing of her phone, the sky outside the window had completely darkened. She opened her eyes lazily and picked up the incessantly vibrating phone, feeling a bit lost. Quote, What are you doing? I said casually over the phone. What am I doing? School, Beauty Wen, I've called you several times and you're not answering. Wen-ning rubbed her eyes hard, feeling a little unhappy that I was scolding her. I accidentally fell asleep just now. You're the one who hasn't been replying to my messages. What time is it? Hurry up and get up. Tong Tong, be careful. Don't wobble when you walk. Then, Tong Tong's slightly annoyed, soft voice sounded from the other end. I know. I continued to ask if she could go out now. Hearing this, Wen-ning lay on the bed, confused. Where are you? I chuckled. Hurry up, wash your face, get dressed, and come downstairs to wait for us. After hanging up, Wen-ning quickly tidied herself up and rushed downstairs. Soon she saw Tong Tong and me sitting on a long bench next to a flower bed, talking. The dim yellow light from the street lamp cast our shadows longer, filling the air with a sense of warmth. Wen-ning stood still, watching us for a moment, completely lost in thought. Tong Tong noticed her instantly. Mommy! The little girl skipped and ran over, holding out her chubby hands. Happy birthday! May Mommy be as young as yesterday on every birthday! Wen-ning hugged her almost entirely on instinct, still a little unsteady. I stood beside them, holding a transparent gift box for a cake. Happy birthday. I bought you a cake. Wen-ning was surprised. How did you know it was my birthday today? I smiled and explained. Tong Tong told me. The little girl insisted on celebrating your birthday since yesterday morning. She's been a handful for the past 2 days. Hearing this, Wen-ning didn't speak but subconsciously hugged her daughter tighter. Tang-tang, don't you blame Mommy for not coming to see you for so long? To her surprise, Shu Miaotong asked confusedly. Tang-tang came to see Mommy though. Looking at her daughter's innocent and sweet appearance, the tension that Wen-ning had been feeling was gradually replaced by a different emotion. It was like something she had never dared to wish for, suddenly appearing in front of her. Wen-ning's nose stung, and her lips moved slightly but she couldn't speak. Su Miaotong, like a kitten, took the initiative to rub her soft cheek against Wen-ning's. Mommy has to blow out the candles before eating the cake. Saying this, she took out a packet of small, colorful candles from her pocket. Daddy said Tong-tong is Doraemon and came back to help Mommy and Daddy make wishes come true. Wen-ning lowered her eyes and gently sniffed. Okay, Mommy will make a wish. Seeing this, I placed the box on the long bench and opened it. Inside was a small cake, shaped like her favorite rabbit head. It looked a little childish and strange. 2 red strawberries served as eyes, and a carrot served as the nose. Happy Birthday Wen-ning was written crookedly on the cake with cream. It looked like Tong-tong had written it. Wen-ning couldn't take her eyes off it. Her vision seemed blurry. She stared at the cake without blinking, like a little girl who had just received a new toy. After a long time, Wen-ning slowly said, You can bake cakes." I denied it immediately. "Don't talk nonsense. I didn't bake this. I bought it at the store. I'm a grown man. I don't have the patience to bake a cake." "Why did you use a carrot as the rabbit's nose?" "I couldn't find anything else. Didn't I just say I bought it at the store?" Wen-ning smiled. "The store wouldn't sell such an ugly cake." She suddenly wished that everything in front of her could be slowed down like a movie, frame by frame, and preserved entirely. Perhaps she would receive other birthday cakes in the future, but she would likely never forget the very ugly cake she received on her 18th birthday. I took the candles from Tong-tong and helped light them and stick them into the cake. Facing the street lamp, the flame of the candle was very faint, flickering as if it might go out at any moment. But it still illuminated Tong-tong and Wen-ning, who were squatting in front of the candles, and me, who was standing beside them. Wen-ning suddenly felt reluctant to cut it. She cautiously spoke up. "Shu-che, can I take a picture before making a wish?" I naturally didn't refuse and let her take as many pictures as she wanted. Finally, Wen-ning used her camera to capture the not-so-delicate cake, putting the precious photo into her private album. She suddenly realized that in such a short time, the number of photos in her album was growing rapidly. Tong-tong shook her mother's hand in a spoiled way. "Mommy, hurry up and make a wish. It'll be too late if the candle goes out." Only then did Wen-ning realize. She quickly closed her eyes and made a wish she had never dared to hope for. "I want to study hard and go to a university in a place I like. I want to have a life that entirely belongs to me. I want to meet people who love me, who are worth my love, and have a real home that is mine." When she opened her eyes again, Tong-tong puffed out her cheeks and, with a whoosh, blew out the candles in front of her. She patted her chest with her little hand. "Phew, that was close. It almost went out." Wen-ning's lips couldn't help but curve into a smile. She touched her daughter's head, unable to say anything. "Mommy, Tong-tong wants to cut the cake." Quote, "Okay, Tong-tong, be careful not to cut his eyes." A few minutes later, the mother and daughter sat on the bench, heads down, eating the cake. I don't particularly like sweets, so I picked up the carrot, sat beside them, and watched them while chewing on it. Suddenly, I asked casually, "What did you wish for? Tell me." Wen-ning subconsciously turned her head to look at me. "But won't it not come true if I say it out loud?" She really thinks she's still a little girl in kindergarten. Then I yawned sleepily and blurted out, "If you don't say your wish, how can I help you realize it?" Wen-ning was stunned. She subconsciously swallowed the cake in her mouth, feeling a strange heat behind her ears, which spread to her cheeks. After a while, she asked hesitantly in a low voice, "What did you just say?" I also realized what I had said. I crunched on the carrot. I said, "If you don't say it out loud, how can this Doraemon, who came back from the future in a time machine, help you realize it?" Wen-ning let out an "oh." She lowered her head and silently poked a piece of cake with her fork and put it in her mouth. The sweet, smooth taste instantly melted. Seeing that she didn't want to talk, I didn't press further, watching Tong Tong stuff cake into her mouth distractedly. After who knows how long, the girl's voice sounded in my ear. My wish is that next year, on my birthday, I can still make a wish in front of the candles, just like now. Finally, after finishing the cake, Wen Ning suddenly remembered something. Right, Shu Che. Do you plan on dating in university? I was a little surprised. Why do you ask? Wen Ning pursed her lips. You know that Tong Tong's appearance is an accident, but she is indeed our daughter. So before Tong Tong is old enough to understand, I hope you don't look for a girlfriend. I didn't say anything, only looked at her with interest. Wen Ning also looked up at me without any guilt. Of course, I'm not trying to stop you from dating. I just hope you can try not to hurt Tong Tong. I nodded. Fair enough. I can accept that reasoning. But before Wen Ning could breathe a sigh of relief, I suddenly changed the subject. But that makes things very difficult for me. Hearing this, Wen Ning immediately stared at me intensely. Difficult? Are you going to cheat on me behind Tong Tong's back? Seeing this, I chuckled softly. It doesn't matter to me, but my mom has given a strict order that I must bring a girl home to meet her when I go to university, to be our old Shu family's daughter-in-law. Otherwise, I might not be able to enter the house during the new year. What should I do? Wen Ning's breathing hitched. She felt like something was off, but she couldn't catch the flaw in my words. She had no choice but to slowly look away, remaining silent. But I wasn't going to let her off the hook so easily. School beauty Wen, speak up. Think of a solution for me. Wen Ning was miserable and only whispered after a long time. Then what should we do? Yeah, what should we do? How about... Saying this, I looked her up and down, a thoughtful expression on my face. How about... Wen Ning's brow twitched rapidly. How about what? Finish your sentence. The topic had been sensitive ever since Tong Tong arrived, but now it felt like something was about to break. Wen Ning suddenly felt a little panicked. After several minutes, my cheerful voice finally rang out. How about I bring Chen Hao home? Anyway, my mom has always suspected we're a couple. Wen Ning's expression instantly turned cold. Of course, she knew who Chen Hao was, but as soon as she turned her head to look, she met my playful gaze. What were you thinking just now? Only then did Wen Ning suddenly realize that I had been teasing her just now. Wen Ning's face stiffened, and her stubborn temper flared up a little. I wasn't thinking anything just now. Is that so? Then why is your face still red? It's the cold wind. No, I'm not blushing. I nodded. It seems you're not. Then I must have been mistaken. Wen Ning was utterly defeated. How can there be such an annoying person in the world? Then she pursed her lips and took a deep breath. Tong Tong, tell mommy the truth. Does future mommy ever have the urge to commit domestic violence? Seeing this, I instantly backed down. I slowly walked away. Why are you still thinking about hitting people? I was just messing with you. Wen Ning walked beside me holding Tong Tong's hand, her face still tense, not really angry, just inexplicably irritated that I had teased her. About 15 minutes later, at the entrance of the residential area, I held Tong Tong's hand and waved. Don't walk any further. Let's stop here. We're going home. You should also get some rest. After saying this, I paused for a moment before continuing. Don't let Tong Tong worry. You can tell me if anything is wrong. Wen Ning nodded. Her mood hadn't been particularly good these past few days, and she wasn't surprised that we had noticed. Then she bent down and reached out to touch Tong Tong's head. Tong Tong, listen to Daddy and be happy every day. Su Miao Tong vigorously said, N, but she still sniffled reluctantly. Mommy, will you come home to see Tong Tong tomorrow? And Daddy will miss Mommy a lot too. Before, no matter how busy Daddy was at work, he would pick Mommy up and bring her home every day. Hearing this, Wen Ning instinctively raised her eyes, and my fingers, which were typing on my phone, also noticeably paused slightly. However, I didn't say anything, pretending nothing had happened, and continuing to reply to the messages on WeChat. Shu Miaotong's eyes slowly reddened. Tong Tong is good every day, and very obedient, but I really miss Mommy. I miss you every day. Wen Ning's heart ached. She couldn't help but pinch her daughter's little face. Tong Tong, don't cry. Mommy promises that Mommy will come home tomorrow. It was already 9 p.m. when we got home. I helped Tong Tong wash up and coaxed her to bed. The girl was probably tired, and she quickly fell into a deep sleep, hugging her pillow. Seeing this, I took my laptop out of the room, planning to find some side jobs online. After all, I couldn't keep asking Mom for money every day. Fortunately, I've been familiar with computers since I was a child, so helping those silly university students shouldn't be too difficult. 3 hours later, looking at the 1,000 RMB credited to my Alipay account, I smiled contentedly. There were plenty of dog liquor university students nowadays. With this income, raising one Tong Tong shouldn't be a big problem. The next morning, it took me a full half hour to finally get my pouting daughter to finish washing up. By the time Tong Tong finished the rice noodle rolls in front of her, Wen Ning had also arrived. I raised an eyebrow in surprise. How are you able to come out today? Dad took stepmom and stepsister back to the hometown. They won't be back until tomorrow. Oh, is there anything left in the fridge? I'll make something delicious for Tong Tong at noon. I thought for a moment. It seemed like there was nothing left at home, so I stood up, preparing to go to the supermarket downstairs to buy groceries. I'll go with you. Let's take Tong Tong too and see what the little girl likes to eat. 10 minutes later, Tong Tong was skipping ahead. Daddy, Tong Tong wants potato chips. I smiled indulgently. I just picked up a bag of potato chips and was about to put it in the cart when Wen Ning snatched it away. Her face was stern. Why are you buying her that? I hesitated. But Tong Tong likes to eat them. She likes to eat them, so you buy them? It's not good for children to eat too many snacks. They can get fat easily, and it's not healthy. With that, Wen Ning turned and put the potato chips back on the shelf. Tong Tong listened, looking very wronged, but clearly her mother's stern face held a certain deterrence. So she pulled on my shirt corner and started to act cute. Daddy, does Tong Tong want them? Daddy is the best? As soon as she finished speaking, Wen Ning stepped forward and pinched her little face. Tong Tong, you are not allowed to flirt with Daddy. With that, she took Tong Tong's hand and walked ahead. Shuche, you just carry the stuff. I'll decide what to buy. I remained silent, but my thoughts were in a frantic battle. So 2.5 seconds later, I decisively picked up a few bags of potato chips and put them in the cart. Seeing Wen Ning's cold gaze, I casually said, I'm buying them for myself. I'm not Tong Tong. What are you going to do about it? You like to eat potato chips too? I shook my head. No, I don't. Wen Ning chuckled in annoyance. She thought I was sometimes quite petty, as if I had some kind of obsession with my position in the family, wanting to prove that I was the one in charge. After thinking for a while, Wen Ning patiently explained, when you eat, Tong Tong will be tempted, and you spoil her so much, she'll definitely get you to give her some if she asks nicely. I smirked and nodded. It's fine, I'll eat them right in front of Tong Tong later, just see if I share any with her. Hearing this, Tong Tong pouted, thinking that Daddy was as mean as Mommy. Wen Ning found it both frustrating and amusing. Why is this guy acting like a child too? However, through their interactions, she had gained some understanding of my personality. I was a typical person who responded better to softness than to firmness. Thinking this, she took a deep breath and spoke in the warmest tone possible. Shuche, I'll cook whatever you want for lunch. How about we don't buy potato chips? Hearing this, my brain instantly short-circuited. My face quickly turned pink. Never mind, you have a point. I silently took all the potato chips out and put them back on the shelf. After buying groceries and returning home, Wen Ning expertly tied an apron around her waist. I'll cook. You go play with Tong Tong for a bit. I figured she rarely came over, so I didn't say much. But who knew? I had only been watching TV with Tong Tong for a little, when my phone suddenly rang. The caller ID was Lin Hui, Mom. I glanced at Wen Ning in the kitchen and casually answered, Mom, nothing. I'm hanging up. The first sentence almost made Lin Hui lose her temper. Brat, what kind of talk is that? Get up, I'm downstairs. Hearing this, I was instantly stunned. Why didn't you tell me in advance? Lin Hui scoffed. Do I have to report to you when I come to see you? We made dumplings at home today. I'm bringing some for you so you don't eat takeout all the time. It's not a holiday today. Why would the family make dumplings? I figured she specifically made them to bring to me, and also to take advantage of the weekend to see her son, whom she hadn't seen in a while. Thinking this, I was actually a little touched. Mom, how about you turn around and go back now? There's still time. Lin Hui was also stunned after hearing what I said. You little rascal. Is that a proper thing to say? No, I'm not home today. Stop messing around and open the door. I hear your cartoon playing. I fell silent. I glanced at Tong Tong, who was lying on the sofa, and then at Wen Ning, who was cooking in the kitchen. I felt like I had been caught in the act, and while I was still dazed, Lin Hui outside had already started knocking. Hurry up and open the door! Hearing the noise, Wen Ning came out and looked at me, confused. I spread my hands helplessly. Mom is here. Hearing this, Wen Ning's face finally changed. She looked down at her clothes. What should I do? I answered honestly. I don't know. Maybe you should act natural and just say you're a classmate coming over to play. A few seconds later, Lin Hui walked in, carrying a bag with a look of utter disgust. You took so long? You couldn't open the door for your mother? You weren't just getting up, were you? Look at the time. Did you stay up all night gaming or something? I was instantly speechless, but I didn't dare to say much. I quickly took the dumplings and pushed Lin Hui's shoulder, turning her around. Okay, Mom, you can go back now. The dumplings are delicious. Seeing this, Lin Hui was genuinely angry. Hey, you little bastard. Are you not even letting me into the house now? Now, I had no choice. Lin Hui changed into a pair of slippers and walked into the living room, complaining nonstop. A grown person still watching cartoons. However, before she could finish, she suddenly stopped dead in her tracks. Wen Ning stood smiling at the kitchen entrance, wiping her hands with an apron, looking a little embarrassed as she faced Lin Hui. Auntie, hello. Lin Hui was frozen, seemingly unable to understand why this beautiful girl, dressed as a cook, would be in her son's house. It would have been more reasonable if the small chef coming out of the kitchen had been Chen Hao. Lin Hui's gaze unconsciously drifted to the table behind Wen Ning. It was full of dishes, and a strong aroma permeated the house. And on the sofa was a very cute little girl, giggling while watching cartoons. Lin Hui was even more bewildered. Did I time travel? Why does this look like a family of 3? Seeing this, I interrupted her. Mom, she's saying hello to you. Lin Hui quickly came back to her senses. Hello, hello. But who are you? Wen Ning was slightly nervous. I'm Suche's classmate, and that's my sister. We came here to hang out. Hearing this, Lin Hui was a little doubtful and couldn't help but mutter internally. A classmate? A classmate comes to play in this dog kennel, and even cooks for the dog? Thinking this, she looked at Wen Ning's delicate face again, and slowly started to remember something. Girl, have I met you somewhere before? I reminded her, Mom, she's Wen Ning. You saw her at the school awards ceremony when you came for the parent-teacher conference. You even told me that the girl was really pretty, with long legs and a thin waist, and you kept mentioning it all the way home. Now Lin Hui finally remembered completely. She had seen the girl from a distance on the stage. Girl, aren't you the one who ranked 6th in your grade? Wen Ning nodded, a little embarrassed, her ears burning. Seeing this, Lin Hui was dazed. She had thought at the time that if this girl were her daughter-in-law, her granddaughter would be so cute and beautiful. But now, such a beautiful girl was cooking for me at home. Wait, are these two dating? Thinking this, her expression instantly became gloomy. The college entrance exam is in 4 months. Why are you still wasting time? Her tone suddenly became very stern. How can you be friends with a person like him? Even after the college entrance exam, you shouldn't look for someone like him. Hearing this, I immediately frowned. Mom, how can you say that about her? To my surprise, Lin Hui rolled her eyes, looking at me with disgust. Can you go look in the mirror in the bathroom? Who said anything about her? I'm talking about you. My face instantly turned darker. Is this really my lovely and kind biological mother? Lin Hui turned her head and earnestly advised, Girl, your grades are so good, and you're so beautiful. You'll have a great future. Right now, you should focus on preparing for the college entrance exam and nothing else. You can find any kind of guy you want. Don't let this little brat deceive you. Wen Ning's expression was awkward. Auntie, Shuche is a very nice person. To be honest, she hadn't experienced this kind of mother, even though not every word was pleasant. Wen Ning could feel that the relationship between the mother and son was actually very good. Did he bully you? Did he try to touch you inappropriately? Wen Ning shook her head gently and softly. No, he didn't. Seeing this, I grumbled with indignation. We have a traitor among us. Why do you despise me so much? Lin Hui was even more disdainful and sneered. You don't remember all the bad things you did in junior high? You expect me to be nice to you? She waved her hand. You're the little rascal I gave birth to. Setting that aside, you're half responsible too. Lin Hui didn't bother to pay attention to me. She smiled and looked at Wen Ning. Girl, I brought him dumplings. You can share them for lunch. Then she looked at Tong Tong. The little girl is so cute, just as pretty as her sister. Hearing the compliment, Tong Tong poked her head out from behind her mother. Grandma is pretty too. Lin Hui's smile grew wider. Grandma? Wen Ning pulled Tong Tong into her arms and explained. She's very friendly. She likes to call any pretty auntie Grandma. This made Lin Hui's smile even brighter, but her gaze couldn't help but linger on Tong Tong's face for a long time. She felt like the little girl looked familiar, as if she had seen her somewhere before. I didn't come for anything else today, just to drop off the food. Lin Hui returned to the door. You guys have fun, I'm going back. She felt that her presence there was making Wen Ning a little nervous, like a young daughter-in-law meeting her mother-in-law for the first time. Hearing this, Wen Ning felt bad. She quickly spoke up softly. Auntie, please stay and eat with us. With that, she blushed. The words made it sound like she was the mistress of the house. Lin Hui quickly waved her hands. No, I've already eaten before I came. Now Wen Ning couldn't say anything more. Her hands rested on her apron, looking incredibly docile. I glanced at her and inexplicably felt that she looked exactly like the Wen Ning in Tong Tong's photo. A gentlewoman who, at first glance, made one think of a virtuous wife and loving mother. Then I pouted. You just got here, why are you leaving already? You specifically drove all this way to bring dumplings. If you wanted to see me, you could have just called me, and I would have gone back. Lin Hui said nonchalantly, You'd only stay one night, and you have class on Monday. It's too much trouble going back and forth. I was a little helpless. And it's not a bother for you to come here? Are you trying to control me? Lin Hui wanted to give me some advice, but she thought better of it, deciding it was overly sentimental. Finally, she just snorted. You're lucky to be friends with such a pretty girl. Don't bully her. How could I bully her? Saying this, I also started to put on my shoes. I'll see you out. Lin Hui didn't refuse this time. Although her son was an adult, he was still a high school student, and as a mother, there were indeed some things she wanted to ask. Wen Ning pinched her apron and whispered, Goodbye, Auntie. Tong Tong also waved reluctantly. Goodbye, Grandma. Grandma and Grandpa are very good to me. Sometimes when Mommy and Daddy are busy with work, Grandma and Grandpa take care of me, picking me up and dropping me off at school every day. But Grandma's hair was quite gray back then. She looks so young and beautiful now. Goodbye, little one. Lin Hui smiled and didn't pay much attention. Then I walked with her downstairs. Lin Hui frowned and looked at me. Is she really just a classmate? No other relationship? I nodded calmly. A classmate comes to your house and cooks for you? And she, Lin Hui paused for a long time before continuing, is an animal lover? But don't think you can lay a hand on her just because she's pretty. I wasn't joking just now. Don't interfere with her getting into a key university, got it? I walked out of the complex with her, a little helpless. Am I some kind of local hoodlum? You came here, and I didn't drive you away. Why are you rushing off? Lin Hui pulled the car door open and said casually, Am I crazy? Your female classmate is here, why would I stay and be a nuisance? You're not a child anymore. You know what you should and shouldn't do. All right, I'm out of here. With that, she drove away very chic. When I got back home, Wen Ning had just come out of the kitchen again, holding a spatula. Her expression was still a little nervous. Did your mom say anything? I shook my head. No. Just then, a new message popped up on my phone. Empress Dowager Auspicious transferred 3,000 RMB to you with an attached message. Don't be so cheap, big boy. Tell me if it's not enough. I generously showed Wen Ning my phone. My mom transferred money to me. Wen Ning leaned in and looked carefully. What does your mom mean by this? I frowned and was silent for a moment, then whispered, It's March 8th soon. She probably wants me to buy you a Women's Day gift. Wen Ning pretended not to hear this. To be honest, meeting Lin Hui was a bit different from what she had imagined. There was no pretense of being a mother or an elder at all. This was the complete opposite of Xiao Ziqing, who also had a strong personality. So Wen-ning was actually quite envious of our relationship. Although she knew she shouldn't think this way, Wen-ning couldn't help but have a strange thought. Being his daughter-in-law would probably be quite a pleasant thing. Wen-ning touched the back of her ear and looked away with a calm expression. Let's eat first. To be honest, this school beauty Wen was indeed naturally suited to be a wife. She used simple ingredients but made dishes that Tong Tong ate with great joy. After lunch, I took the initiative to wash the dishes. Wen-ning played with Tong Tong for a while, then took the little girl to the room and coaxed her to take a nap. By the time I came out of the kitchen, Wen-ning had just softly closed the bedroom door. She held up a finger. She's asleep. Let's keep our voices down. But after saying this, her face suddenly felt hot. Wait, why does it feel like a married couple who just put their child to sleep and are going to another room to sneak in some affection? I didn't notice her unusual behavior and asked, "What are we doing this afternoon?" "Test papers. I brought my backpack." "Take out the test papers you've done recently and let me have a look." With that, Wen-ning sat down at the wiped-clean dining table and took things out of her backpack. Seeing that I didn't move, she couldn't help but tap the table with her pen. "What are you waiting for? Let's get started." Hearing this, I took out my test papers for her to check. Wen-ning looked very carefully. After finishing them all, her expression relaxed quite a bit. She could tell that I had been studying diligently. Although my English paper was still a little appalling, it was much better than the last one. Then she said seriously, "Do you have any wrong questions that you don't understand? I can explain them to you." I leaned back in the chair casually and nodded very arrogantly. I generally don't make the same mistake twice. Hearing this, Wen-ning was a little confused. "Then why are your grades so poor?" "My mom doesn't really manage me. I go home and play games until midnight. Where do I have time to study?" Saying this, I sat up straight and started flipping through the test papers. "You really like playing games? It's okay, it kills time." Wen-ning was silent for a moment, lost in thought. She remembered the day I carried my backpack to sell the game console and discs. They must have been something he really loved. Seeing this, I also tapped the table hard, mimicking her. "Are you going to study or not? If you want to look at me, just look. You don't need to find an excuse to study." Wen-ning came back to her senses. She glared at me. "Who's looking at you? I was just spacing out. I've just never seen someone who scores below 600 be so arrogant." I felt her contempt. I held my pen and said cheekily, "You just wait. I'll cheat my way past you in the next monthly exam." Wen-ning wasn't angry about my deliberate omission of a few words. Instead, she found it amusing. "But I scored 688 points. Saying this, Wen-ning couldn't help but curl her lips, a rare joke from her. "Then I'll wait for you to cheat your way past me. Don't say it if you can't do it." Wen-ning paused, then emphasized each word. "Big man!" Hearing the score 688, I instantly behaved myself. After that, Wen-ning stopped joking with me and seriously explained the incorrect problems. Although she was a top student, she was very patient. Similarly, Wen-ning also realized that I hadn't been bragging just now. Not only was my comprehension ability very strong, but my memory was ridiculously good. By the time we came back to our senses, the wall clock was already pointing to the evening. Just then, Tong Tong came out of the room, rubbing her eyes. She looked at Wen-ning, who was packing her backpack, and asked sleepily, "Mommy, where are you going?" Wen-ning pinched her cheek. "Mommy is going home. I can't steal the bed from Tong Tong and Daddy." Tong Tong let out a disappointed sound. "I thought Mommy was going to sleep with Tong Tong today. Daddy is enough. Mommy will come to see you next time. But when Mommy goes back, it will be a long, long time before Tong Tong can see Mommy again." With that, Tong Tong buried her soft face in her mother's arms. And Tong Tong loves lying in Mommy's arms. Wen-ning pursed her lips, clearly softening. It must feel great to sleep while hugging the soft and sweet Tong Tong. Besides, she had just promised Tong Tong yesterday that she would spend some quality time with her. Her stepmother and stepsister were gone this week, and after they returned, she might not have this chance again. I, who had been playing with my phone, also couldn't help but look up. "Be a good girl, won't you? Tong Tong wants to sleep with Mommy. I'm a girl." Wen-ning hesitated. "It's not appropriate for me to stay at your place, is it?" She wasn't worried about me doing anything. For some reason, after this period of interaction, she trusted me a lot. I looked at her. confused. I felt like her tone wasn't as firm as it should be. Inappropriate? And I only have one bed at home. Hurry up and go home. If you're late, I'll have to drive you. So tonight, Wen Ning bit her lip, looking at Tong Tong in her arms. Tong Tong very appropriately pouted and started to whine cutely. Mommy is the best. So tonight... Wen Ning paused, then looked at me. The living room is yours. Quote, seeing this, my face turned dark. We aren't even married yet, and I'm already being sent to the couch in the living room with a blanket? I couldn't take that kind of insult. So I pouted and scoffed. What if I lose control in the middle of the night and try to do something bad? My mom told you today to keep your hands off me, didn't she? Your mother actually said that? Wen Ning thought, looking at my 1.79-meter height. She found the idea a bit ridiculous. Could I even force you? My face instantly flushed at her expression. After thinking for a long time, I finally managed to blurt out, well, won't Tong Tong be there to help you? Together, Tong Tong and I can force you. Wen Ning felt like I was leading her astray, and Tong Tong, seeing me trying to ruin her good fortune, got anxious and quickly shouted at me, Daddy, don't bully Mommy. I immediately shut up. Actually, I wasn't completely opposed to the idea. I just felt that Wen Ning was too unguarded around me, although it wasn't a bad thing either. After dinner, I sat on the sofa, playing with my phone. Occasionally, I would look up and see Wen Ning sitting at the table, teaching Tong Tong how to write. This cold, aloof campus ice queen, as the outsider saw her, had a face full of wisdom and gentle warmth. Tong Tong, this stroke you wrote isn't quite right, she murmured. Then, Mommy, hold my hand and teach me how to write. Watching the two beautiful women, mother and daughter who looked so alike, I truly had the illusion of having a family. Or perhaps it wasn't an illusion, because Tong Tong really did have a blood relationship with me, and Wen Ning, from the moment Tong Tong appeared, had developed an infinitely complex relationship with me. By 9 o'clock in the evening, Tong Tong finally started to get sleepy, constantly yawning with half-closed eyes, like a drowsy kitten. Wen Ning led Tong Tong to the bathroom to wash up, then carried her to the bedroom. It was clear Tong Tong was very happy, not just because her mother was willing to spend more time with her, but more so because the house now had both a daddy and a mommy. To her, a home was only complete when both parents were present. A few minutes later, Wen Ning sat cross-legged on the bed, and Tong Tong was nestled in her arms, mumbling drowsily, Mommy, you used to tell me about the time you spent with Daddy every day. Why aren't you telling me today? Wen Ning's voice was soft. Because those things haven't happened yet. When will they happen? Wen Ning kissed her daughter's cheek, but didn't answer. It took about another half an hour before Tong Tong finally fell into a deep sleep. Even in her dreams, a sweet smile lingered on her face, and she hugged her mother's arm like it was a precious treasure. Wen Ning cautiously pulled her hand free, then walked to the bedroom door and said, Shu-che, Tong Tong and I are going to rest. You should also get some rest soon. Still playing on my phone, I casually replied, Remember to lock the door. That way, I'll hear if you open it in the middle of the night. Hearing this, Wen Ning puffed up her cheeks indignantly and ignored me. She locked the door and returned to the bed. In the darkness, Wen Ning felt her daughter's warm, soft body clinging tightly to her, still mumbling Mommy in her sleep. In the living room outside, there were occasional faint noises of movement, clearly made carefully and quietly. These subtle sounds strangely gave Wen Ning a sense of peace, and she quickly fell asleep. When she woke up again, it was late at night. Wen Ning felt a burning thirst in her throat. She carefully moved Tong Tong's hand to the side, then got up to go to the kitchen for a glass of water. But unexpectedly, I was still awake, sitting at the dining table, typing on my keyboard. Hearing the sound, I turned my head and looked at the groggy Wen Ning. I smiled, a little knowingly. Why don't you go back and wait a while? Wen Ning instantly sobered up a bit. I just came out to drink some water. I didn't tease her any further, just nodded. There's warm water in the bottle. Go pour yourself some. A few minutes later, Wen Ning came out with her water, looking confused. Why are you still awake? She walked over and looked at the computer screen. It was a black interface filled with dense strings of code. It looked complicated, not like something a high school student of this age would be working on. I didn't explain, just tapped the keyboard quickly, looking a bit tired. Wen Ning realized, You're working? I lazily replied, Not really. Just doing some simple small stuff. It's easy and earns fast cash. Tongtong will need quite a bit of money when she starts school." When Ning paused, the light from the computer screen stung her eyes a little. Her expression was somewhat dazed. For the first time, she felt like the long gap between two timelines had truly disappeared. Although my face was much younger, in that moment she felt I truly overlapped with the middle-aged man in Tongtong's photos. Snapping out of it, she immediately reached out and pressed down on my keyboard. "It's late. Go rest first." I chuckled at her action. "Just a bit more. You go to sleep first." Wen Ning pursed her lips. "Tongtong is my daughter too. When she starts school, I'll help support the family. I'll definitely repay everything I owe you then." I was stunned to hear that. Supporting the family? Isn't that just supporting Tongtong? Are you planning to support me too? I then checked the time and agreed it was quite late. I turned off the computer and stood up. "Fine, let's go to sleep. But you have to earn more money in the future, Campus Belwen. Tongtong said my value will be very high later. I'm afraid you won't be able to afford to keep me." "Who said anything about keeping you?" Wen Ning finally realized there was something wrong with what she had just said. She urgently wanted to change the subject, but after a long silence, she managed to force out, "Then you need to learn more skills, like singing and dancing, or else I'll be at a huge disadvantage." I smiled mischievously. "Dream on. I sell my body, not my skills." Wen Ning couldn't reply to that and quickly scurried back to the room. I didn't worry about it, washed up, and lay down to rest on the sofa. Inside the room, Wen Ning was soundly asleep, holding the soft Shu Miaotong. Suddenly, a loud knocking came at the door. "I bought you breakfast. Hurry up and get Tongtong out of bed. Didn't you say your family was coming back today, and you had to go home early?" Wen Ning completely didn't want to move or answer. She hadn't slept well after returning to the room last night and had only managed to fall asleep close to dawn. But after about half a minute, the knocking continued. Even Tongtong in her arms was getting annoyed. "Mommy, go open the door! It's so loud! So loud!" Wen Ning also felt extremely irritable. A wave of irritation surged up in her semi-conscious state. With a cold face, she quickly got out of bed. After a quick glance at me, she turned around and silently lay back down under the covers. I was instantly stunned. Isn't she a grown-up girl? Why is she acting exactly like Tongtong in the morning? However, I was also too lazy to go open the door this early. After a moment of silence, I walked to the bed and picked Tongtong up. "Good girl, time to wake up." Shu Miaotong frowned and mumbled, "Daddy is so annoying. The person who is still not out of bed at this hour is a lazy dog. They're useless. Of course, I wasn't saying this to Tongtong. As for who I was hinting at, the grown girl hiding under the blanket had to figure it out herself. Wen Ning was muffled by the quilt for a moment but couldn't stand it anymore. She threw off the blanket and sat up, taking 2 deep breaths. "Shuche, no wonder Tongtong gets mad at you every morning. You really are annoying." I was a bit helpless. "Tongtong is growing up. How can she skip breakfast? And I'm not exactly happy about getting up early to buy it every day either." Wen Ning couldn't argue with that, and had no choice but to get up and take Tongtong to the bathroom to wash up. The mother and daughter stood side by side, brushing their teeth in the mirror, still silent. It wasn't until she led her daughter to the dining table and saw the still warm milk and corn that Wen Ning belatedly realized what had happened. She suddenly felt a little guilty. I looked at her, smiling but not smiling. "Did you think it never happened? You just got angry at me." Wen Ning's ears felt hot. She lowered her eyes and said in a low voice, I just couldn't see clearly when I woke up this morning. I didn't realize it was you." I curled my lip. "Fine, so you'll play dirty, will you? How about this?" Wen Ning licked her dry lips. "Next time, you just ignore me when you wake up, or you can even get angry at me. You want it next time?" I almost laughed in exasperation. "I swear, you and your daughter are exactly the same. Am I a dog? Do you two have to kick me every morning?" Wen Ning felt extremely guilty. She knew she had been in the wrong. She had just made a pinky promise with Tongtong, yet she, the mother, hadn't managed to keep it. Thinking this, Wen Ning finally made up her mind and tentatively said, "How about, you pinch my cheek just like you scold Tongtong in the morning? I promise I won't resist. Can we just stop being angry, okay?" She ended the sentence with a soft, pleading tone. My brain instantly short-circuited. Is this really the cold, aloof campus belle I know, speaking to me in such a soft, flattering voice? It felt like she was treating me the way one coaxes tong-tong. I sat there in silence for a long time. Only then did I push the 2 bowls of prepared oatmeal and milk towards her. "I made these for you two. Drink them." After breakfast, Wen Ning left with her school bag to go home. For her, this weekend had been very eventful. She had spent time with Tong Tong and also seen my current study habits. Once her family returned, she wouldn't necessarily have this kind of freedom anymore. I decided to spend the next week practicing the 9 yen manual. After all, the college entrance exam wasn't far off. It wasn't that I wanted an extremely high score, but Tong Tong's appearance had already changed the future, including our colleges. So I still hoped my low score wouldn't affect Wen Ning's choices when selecting schools. This was probably a matter of male pride. At noon that day, Li Yu had just gotten her food and saw me sitting in the corner, eating and reading. She couldn't help but complain. "What kind of stimulus have you had lately? In the past, you wouldn't study even if someone forced you, so why are you suddenly reading English now?" I replied casually, "Isn't it just my rebellious phase starting? I feel like studying is only fun when the English teacher already thinks I'm a lost cause." Li Yu rolled her eyes, then also pulled out her small notebook and started studying like me. "Yu, I've always wanted to ask you something. Why didn't you choose the liberal arts stream when we were splitting classes?" Li Yu didn't speak, just quietly lowered her head to eat and read. She knew she was a little slow in her reactions to various things, and studying math, physics, and chemistry was pure torture for both herself and the teachers. Suddenly, Chen Hao's voice interrupted. "Why are you two hiding here to eat?" I glanced over without speaking. Behind him stood a girl with large eyes, looking cheerful and cute. Chen Hao smiled at her. "You go find them over there. I'm eating with my friends." But the girl blinked and suggested they all eat together. Li Yu raised her eyes, looked at her, and quickly lowered her head again, acting as if nothing happening concerned her. "This is the girl I was talking about. I know you, Chen Hao. You mention her every day." Hearing my words, Chen Hao was clearly confused. The girl, however, was clearly surprised, but the smile on her face grew even brighter. "Really? Hao and I are just ordinary good friends. We met when he was playing basketball on the field." I smiled, nodded, and continued. "He said you were a very cute girl, classmate Lin." He girl instantly froze. My surname is Shu, and my name is Shu Qianqian. I'm in class 11. The atmosphere suddenly became awkward. I was silent for a moment. "My apologies, that I might have mistaken you for someone else. Chen Hao hasn't mentioned you to me." Li Yu was eating a hard-boiled egg and almost choked on it. She wanted to laugh but didn't dare, so she could only hide her face, pressing her lips together and secretly suppressing a laugh. Eventually, the girl felt too embarrassed to stay and left with her meal tray to find her own classmates. I looked blandly at Chen Hao. "Stop misleading people." Chen Hao leaned casually against the seat. "How is this misleading? I went to find the boys in their class to play basketball, and she came over and asked for my WeChat herself. Didn't she look quite happy?" Hearing this, Li Yu immediately said sarcastically, "Then don't bring them in front of us. You change girlfriends every half-month like you change clothes. If you have that much free time, we two don't have the time to get to know all of them." Chen Hao pouted. "You're the only one who has dared to talk to me like that since we were kids. But you're so fierce. How will you ever get married when you grow up? Don't end up being 30 and unwanted, crying secretly at home." Li Yu ignored him, turned her head to clear the table, seemingly angry. Seeing this, Chen Hao scratched his head. "I was just messing with you." "Are you angry again?" Li Yu's expression was blank. "No, my temper is indeed bad and my looks aren't great. You haven't said anything wrong." Chen Hao was stunned. "I only said your temper was bad, not that your looks were bad. How about this? If you're 30 and still stuck at home and can't get married, I'll reluctantly marry you." Li Yu raised her eyes and said dismissively, "Even if you haven't managed to trick a wife with that face of yours by the time you're 30, I will absolutely never consider you, you jerk." She finished speaking and left with her meal tray. Hearing this, I subtly elbowed Chen Hao. "Don't speak in absolutes. The flag is flying too high." However, the thought made me realize that based on my daughter's age, Wen-ning and I would also be in our 30s when we got married. But judging by Tong-tong's descriptions, Wen-ning and I must have gone through a lot to end up together. How did two people who had absolutely no connection fall in love after college and enter into marriage? Thinking this, I took out my phone and sent a message to the campus belle Wen. "Ning, I need to ask you something important." Perhaps feeling my tone was serious, Wen-ning replied very quickly, but she was also confused about what I meant, so she just sent back a crisp question mark. I continued tapping the screen, sending the message, "Who chased who between us back then? Do you know?" Wen-ning paused, silent for a long time, then replied, "You mean in the future, right? How would I know? You have to ask Tong-tong." I went over everything Tong-tong had said these past few days and came to a conclusion. Tong-tong said you always boast to her. It seems it must have been you who pursued me frantically back then, which is why you even get jealous of your daughter in the end. It's logical and well-reasoned. This silenced Wen-ning for a long time before she replied, "Tong-tong also said I made you kneel on the washboard, and you obediently did. Why couldn't it have been you pursuing me?" Wen-ning knew her own personality. If she didn't genuinely like someone, no amount of chasing would win her over. So she didn't think she would chase someone frantically like a little girl. Of course, I thought the same way. So I decided to go home and ask Tong-tong for a clear answer. In the end, we both sent the same message to the chat box. It definitely wasn't me. So when I went home that evening, I immediately asked Tong-tong about it. To my surprise, Tong-tong said proudly, "When Mommy was studying, lots of boys liked her, but Mommy didn't like any of them. It wasn't until she graduated and met Daddy." By this time, I had turned on the speakerphone. Wen-ning on the other end of the line was quietly waiting for her daughter's further answer. Mommy said Daddy liked her first. Daddy chased her for a long time before she finally agreed. Saying this, Tong-tong bit her finger, looking confused. But Daddy said that on the day they got together, Mommy confessed first, and then stood on her tiptoes to kiss him. Hearing this, Wen-ning and I both fell silent. It seemed Tong-tong didn't know the answer either. So were we two tsundere people dating? Wen-ning paused for a long time, then decided to strike first. I heard her give a cold laugh. "You actually chased me for that long. You have great perseverance, huh?" I countered. "It's all right. You had to stand on your tiptoes to kiss me on the day you confessed. That must have been tough." This hit a nerve with Wen-ning. She really couldn't imagine her own personality doing something so bold, but judging by the height difference Tong-tong mentioned, if I didn't bend down, she would indeed have to stand on her tiptoes slightly. I was also a little depressed. "I chased her for a long time before she agreed." "Tong-tong, are you sure? Was Daddy the wolf that got hit by the frying pan?" Of course, I didn't think Tong-tong was lying. Perhaps we just didn't know what we were like when we truly fell in love with someone. Over the next period, although we talked on the phone every day, our opportunities to meet decreased significantly. One reason was my busy school schedule, and the other was Wen-ning's need to consider her family. Then, one day in late March, I suddenly felt a sharp pain in my abdomen and felt groggy and unwell. Panicked, Chen Hao and Li Yuyu immediately rushed me to the hospital. Unexpectedly, after looking at my x-rays, the doctor sighed. "So young, what a pity. Cut it out." I was instantly dumbfounded, with a massive question mark floating above my head. The doctor then slowly smiled. "Don't worry, young man. It's just acute appendicitis. We'll cut it out, and you'll be fine." I immediately rolled my eyes, cursing him silently. Luckily, the diagnosis was timely, and the problem wasn't serious. The surgery would only take a few hours, and I'd be fine after a few days of rest and controlling my diet. Li Yuyu finally let out a long sigh of relief. "You really scared us just now. I'll go pay the bill first." "Chen Hao, you call Ache's aunt?" Wen-ning only found out about it the next day. Because I didn't think it was a big deal, I hadn't told her. It was Tong-tong who called, crying, and told her that Daddy fell ill, because Tong-tong was crying incoherently. Wen-ning's heart clenched instantly, and she felt short of breath. Having gone through her mother's illness, she was extremely sensitive to words like hospital and disease. After confirming the hospital, she immediately hailed a taxi after school and rushed over. In the simple hospital room, Tong-tong was draped over the side of the bed, holding my hand, her voice hoarse from crying. I pinched her cheek. "Good Tong-tong, don't cry. Daddy is perfectly fine. Just then, Su Lingling walked in with a basin of water. Hearing Tong Tong's crying, she also started to weep. Quote, Yan, Auntie's heartache seeing you like this. You haven't had any major illnesses since you were little. How did this suddenly happen? You're the only male heir in our family. I was silent for a moment and then said, Auntie, it's just appendicitis. It's not a vasectomy. To my surprise, Xu Lingling cried even louder. But having a knife cut your stomach must hurt so much. What if a lot of things grow out of the wound? It was at this exact moment that Wen Ning anxiously pushed the door open and rushed in. When she saw the two beautiful women, one large and one small, crying hysterically by my bedside, Wen Ning panicked. Xu Che, what happened to you? You were fine last week. I turned my head, surprised to see her. It's just appendicitis, little girl. Don't be so shocked. I'm fine. Wen Ning sighed with relief, but still nervously bit her lip. Then, Auntie, I chuckled softly. Auntie is still a little girl too. Seeing she still didn't believe me, I had to show her the x-rays. After she carefully looked at them, Wen Ning finally relaxed completely. It took me a long time to comfort Auntie and Tong Tong, making them believe that my body was perfectly fine. At this point, I pinched my daughter's ear. Tong Tong, stay at Auntie's house for the next 2 days, okay? I really am fine. If you keep crying, I'll be sad too. Then I looked at Xu Lingling. Auntie, you're pregnant, so take Tong Tong home to rest first. Wen Ning looked at the darkening sky outside and then at the numerous missed calls on her phone. Before coming, she had only told her father and stepmother that she was going to the hospital to see a sick classmate. Thinking about it, Wen Ning sent a message to her father. I'm staying here tonight to accompany him. After replying, she locked her phone and put it in her pocket. Then, she looked at the hesitant Aunt Xu. Auntie, you take Tong Tong back. I'll stay here to keep him company. Xu Lingling was surprised. Are you sure it's okay? Wen Ning nodded. It's fine. Tong Tong will only be at ease if I stay here with him. Hearing this, Tong Tong nodded with a little, her eyes still red. I glanced at Wen Ning and didn't say anything more. After Xu Lingling took Tong Tong back to rest, I checked the time. It was already 9:30 p.m. So I spoke up, Wen Ning, you should go back too. You have class tomorrow. Send me a message when you get home. But Wen Ning ignored me. She took off her jacket, placed it on the visitor's chair next to the bed, and prepared to go fetch some hot water. Seeing that she was serious about staying, I couldn't help but frown. Didn't you say your family has been strictly controlling you lately? Your stepmother and stepsister will be giving you trouble again. I really don't have a serious problem. A few days of rest is all I need. Wen Ning finally paused in her movements. She turned her head to look at me and said glumly, My mother said the same thing to me when she left when I was 7. I froze at her words. My throat tightened slightly, and I didn't know what to say. Quote, Wen Ning continued, saying, That night, he told me to go home and said that when I woke up, Mommy would be healthy and fine. That's why I've always been a little afraid of hospitals. After all, I spent several years with Mom in the hospital when I was little. Only those who have experienced it can understand. I also felt a lump in my heart, and I really didn't want her to recall those past events. I quickly changed the subject, saying, Didn't you say your family wouldn't let you hang out with boys before graduation? I sat up and tried to smile, but it tugged at the wound on my stomach, which still hurt a little. What if your stepmother goes to school and reports me for puppy love? Then you can just say that I was the one who chased you, Wen Ning said, smiling as well, since you always think that anyway. I'm not leaving until you're completely recovered. Without giving me a chance to object, Wen Ning turned and went to the restroom to get hot water. But what she hadn't expected was that just as she reached the corridor, her father, Wen Qiming, called her. Ning, where are you right now? Dad will come pick you up. Wen Ning hesitated for a moment. I'm at the hospital. My classmate is sick. He helped me a lot before, so I want to take care of him for a bit. Is it that boy? Wen Ning didn't answer. Seeing her silence, Wen Qiming patiently advised, But this isn't what a student like you should be doing. He has his family. There will be people who care about him. You are still just a high school student, and the most important thing is... Wen Ning interrupted him. Study? But Dad, I only have a few months left until I graduate. What will be the most important thing for me then? Wen Qiming didn't know what to say. Wen Ning held the phone and continued softly. Dad, please don't worry about certain things. It's just that I don't know how to talk to you about them. From childhood until now, Wen Ning had always hoped that her father would show her favoritism when making choices, just once. But from the moment her father brought Aunt Xiao into their lives, to the birth of Wen Chong, and now it had never happened. That's why Wen Ning had never told him about Tong Tong, and she didn't know how to bring it up. The call finally ended half an hour later. Wen Qiming didn't know what else to say to his daughter. Whenever he opened his mouth, all he could say was something along the lines of, "At your age, you should be focusing on your studies." Both father and daughter tragically realized that, at some point, the distance between them had grown to such an extent. Looking at Wen Ning walking in from outside, I couldn't help but ask, "What's wrong?" "You were gone for a long time." Wen Ning put down the bag in her hand. "I had a phone call with Dad and bought some toiletries on the way. Are you hungry? Do you want something to eat?" Wen Ning poured the hot water into the basin and said casually. I smiled and said, "No need, you can sit and read. Then, could you hand me the laptop from my bag? I haven't finished the job yet." Wen Ning immediately frowned. "No way," the nurse said, "you have to stay in bed. Why are you so disobedient? And no phones either. Wipe your face and lie down immediately." She snatched my phone, locked the screen, and placed it on the small side table. I was stunned. "You've been a little too arrogant in front of me lately, haven't you? You're not even my wife yet." "Oh, yes?" Wen Ning wrung the hot towel and looked at me provocatively. "I especially love bullying frail, sick patients. Now put your face here and roll around in the towel." Feeling grumpy, I took the towel to wipe my face. After I was done washing up, Wen Ning turned off the light and sat on the visitor's chair. "If you need anything, just call me." I turned my head and saw her curled up in the chair, with her coat covering her body, leaving only her head exposed. She was able to free one hand to play with her phone. The faint screen light illuminated her face. Wen Ning was already beautiful in a cool, striking way, and now she looked even more aloof. She was clearly very practiced at this posture, as if she had done it many times. When she was a child, Wen Ning could probably curl herself up tightly like a ball. Now that she was grown up, the person she used to guard, the one she needed to stay curled up under a coat for all night, was gone. The thought inexplicably made me feel a bit melancholic. Wen Ning sensitively looked up. Quote, "Rest early, you have class tomorrow." I didn't say anything more and lay down obediently. In the dead of night, I woke up again feeling thirsty. The ward was quiet. I sat up, preparing to go pour myself a glass of water. Unexpectedly, this small movement immediately woke Wen Ning. "What's wrong?" "Just getting some water. You go back to sleep." I was about to get out of bed when Wen Ning had already stood up and walked to my bedside. "You're thirsty and you won't call for someone? Don't you know you're a patient?" I was a little annoyed. "Hey, why are you starting to talk just like me?" Wen Ning ignored me, placed the warm cup of water in my hand, and then lay back down on the chair. Later in the night, I quietly tried to get up again, only to be met by Wen Ning's beautiful eyes once more. I looked at her, oddly. "Are you going to help me even when I need to go to the bathroom?" Hearing this, Wen Ning closed her eyes again, a blush creeping onto her cheeks. "Go ahead, then." Early the next morning, Wen Ning gave me instructions with her school bag on her back. "Drink all the porridge later. You can read a book this morning, but no computer. I'll come back at noon." I nodded. "Go to class. You don't need to come back unless there's something wrong. I'm not a child." Wen Ning gave me a look but didn't say anything. She folded the visitor's chair and placed it nearby before leaving. At lunchtime, Wen Ning returned to the hospital with food and found that an old man had been admitted to the ward with a middle-aged woman, presumably his daughter, sitting next to him. I was chatting casually with the old man. Wen Ning paid no mind, walked in, and put her school bag on the table. "Shuche, have you eaten?" I nodded. "I have. Auntie came by earlier." Wen Ning simply acknowledged this, then opened her lunchbox and started eating next to me. Suddenly the old man chuckled and said, "Young man, is this your wife?" Wen Ning's hand paused noticeably. She glanced at me and silently swallowed the food in her mouth. I laughed and replied, "Elder, she's not my wife. She's a very good classmate who specially came to see me." The old man went, "Oh, not married yet? That girl treats you so well. Hurry up and take her home to be your wife." Wen Ning and I were both completely silent at this. "My dad has a bit of Alzheimer's," the woman said awkwardly, quickly stuffing an apple into his hand. "Dad, that's his friend, not his wife." The old man got angry. "You have Alzheimer's. Your whole family has Alzheimer's. I can tell with one look that this girl is his wife." "No." Wen Ning still tried to protest, but the old man clearly wasn't listening. He was convinced the two of us were a couple and sat on the bed grinning foolishly. "When did you two get married?" I said helplessly. "Elder, we're still just kids." To my surprise, the old man nodded and said, Right, you should have a child. If your relationship is stable, hurry up and have a big, fat baby boy. How adorable." Wen Ning couldn't take it anymore. She wanted to explain, but felt it would be useless. Facing this talkative but harmless old man, she couldn't bring herself to say anything harsh. She finally just stuffed a hard-boiled egg into her mouth. "Who is going to have a big, fat baby boy for him?" The old man laughed happily. "If you like girls, having a girl is good too. Girls are better behaved, more obedient, and closer to their parents." I smiled in agreement. "That's well said." Wen Ning couldn't stand it anymore. She put her lunchbox in the trash can, preparing to take the garbage out. The truth was, she didn't have much to do when she came over at noon. This made her actions look like she was just dropping by to check on me and eat her lunch next to me. It was no wonder the old man misunderstood our strange behavior. Fortunately, I was discharged on the third day at noon. Seeing us packing up, the old man was a bit sad. "You're leaving already? Hey, you two have to treat each other well. Go back and have a child soon." After 2 days of relentless nagging, Wen Ning finally couldn't hold it in anymore as we were leaving. "No, Elder, stop talking. We're going back to get a divorce." The old man instantly went quiet. I felt like laughing at the sight, but the wound on my stomach was still there, and holding my breath still hurt a little. Still, hearing her say that felt refreshing. After leaving the hospital, Wen Ning insisted on taking me home despite my protests. Half an hour later, Wen Ning pulled a stack of sticky notes from her bag and meticulously wrote things down while checking her phone. I lay on the sofa and looked at her suspiciously. "What are you doing?" Wen Ning replied, "Important things to note. You're not allowed to eat anything cold, spicy, or greasy lately. In short, all irritating foods are forbidden. I'll stick it on your kitchen door so you see it as soon as you open it." Wen Ning then thought for a moment and stuck another note on the top left corner of my computer screen. No using the computer after 12 a.m. In short, anything Wen Ning considered important, she wrote down and stuck in the most conspicuous spot. Watching her walk back and forth, sticking the notes everywhere, I was a little lost in thought. It felt like a strange time warp. This scene was probably something I would see every day, a decade or two from now. But what about the me and Wen Ning in Tongtong's world? Perhaps sometimes, in the midst of their sweet life, a trace of regret suddenly arose. Regret for missing each other's best years and never having shared each other's youth. But by the time I snapped back to reality, Wen Ning was already standing in front of me with her school bag, ready to leave. "Were you listening to me just now?" I shook my head honestly. "No," Wen Ning sighed. She pulled another sticky note from her pocket. She quickly wrote a few words, holding it against her palm, and then tore it off. "There's one more note that needs to be stuck here." Then, I felt something cool touch my face, and a sticky note was placed on my cheek. Wen Ning walked towards the door with her bag. "I'm heading back first. Unless it's important, I might not come over much anymore. You have to take care of yourself." I was stunned. I took the note off my face. The handwriting was neat and beautiful. No staying up late, no eating junk food, no getting sick again. Besides the exclamation points, she had drawn a small bunny head in the bottom right corner with simple strokes. Its 2 ears were raised, and it looked quite angry. As Wen Ning was sitting down and putting on her shoes with her head lowered, she suddenly heard my soft laughter behind her. "It really does look like it." Wen Ning didn't know what I was laughing about and mumbled, "I also feel like I'm your mom." "My mom wasn't that careful," I said, laughing and calmly adding, "I meant it really does look like my wife." Wen Ning's face instantly flushed. She actually felt that her actions did have a certain flavor to them, but she still needed to retort properly. So she pouted disdainfully. "What wife? Your condition seems to have been affected by that old man. Are you getting a little bit of Alzheimer's too?" "Haha, folks, she's getting flustered." She's getting flustered. Time flew by quickly, and the tail end of March was completely gone. Minor illness didn't affect my life. I continued the routine of going to school, coming home, and picking up Tong Tong in the evening.